Hello, everyone. How's it going? Can everybody hear me? So we're going to have some special guests on tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the LBL, the update of the LBL. So let everybody get situated. That little zombie guy was loud. That little the zombie dude is really loud. It's like busting my eardrums. So there we go. You don't have to turn that down that low. But yeah, so where are the Patreon guys at here? We get started with that, announcing the Patreon supporters. Barry, Titan, Chronological, Dead Man Walking, Russell Nash, Guy, Don Wells, Melissa Panay, Derek Tribble, Rudy Gutierrez, Andrea Krask, Patrick Nickerson, Shannon, Dick Richards, Joyce Brunette, Wendy Page Williams, Earl Bowers, Barbara Blindy, Martin Hertel, Terry Fuselier, Chris Clough, Lou the Good Dude, Curtis Turner, Philip Morn, Alexander Murphy, Matthew Durgo, Chris Smith, and Ralph Ayu. So only got one new one. That sucks. Thought we was doing a pretty good job. Guess not. Over here slaving away under a hot microphone. Nobody's giving us any props. What's up with that? We need to let people know who are on Spotify, because a lot of people just we need to let people know, because we are doing this every Tuesday, and a lot of people who just watch us on Spotify, they don't know about this. So let people know what's going on, that we're doing these live streams on Tuesdays. Also, join our groups on Facebook. Even if you don't have Facebook, maybe just go to Facebook and do it so you can join the group. It's real easy to set up a profile. It's not that hard. Just set up a profile and join us on Facebook and our Facebook groups. Paranormal Encounters, Paranormal Round Table, which is the main group. Paranormal Lounge, which is Nellie's group. And then, of course, we have Whisper to a Scream, which is Ryan Tremblay's group, and I'm an admin in that group. Paranormal Roundtable, for some reason, we have gotten a ton of new people joining, but it's like we're stuck at 5.1 thousand. So I don't know if Facebook's messing with us or what, because I know we've gone over 5.1, and it just sounds like they're just messing with us or something. It's not growing. It's weird. But Paranormal Lounge did actually hit 2,000. She actually beat Tony to 2,000. I think Tony beat her to 1,000. But Nellie has beaten him to 2,000. She is now on her group. She is now at 2,000 members. So congratulations to Nellie for that. My wife says, "Sorry, Facebook is a hard pass." Laugh out loud. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to not like Facebook. Believe me, I have my issues, but I only do it because it's a way to keep in touch, and then for the show, So if anybody is interested in keeping up on all things PRT, that's a way to do it. Paranormal Roundtable. Someone asked how my mom is doing. My mom was supposed to have her procedure today, and they moved it again, so I don't know if it's going to happen tomorrow. But keep her in your prayers. She's really scared. So, a lot of stuff going on. My mom's very ill. My wife has been ill too. Her back has been bothering her real bad, and her chest has been hurting a lot. So she's excited. She finally got her license renewed today because it took so long because of COVID. She actually went a month ahead, and they were nice enough to actually let her go ahead and do it. It was actually set for May 20th instead of April 20th. And so May 20th is kind of a special day for me and Nellie because that's the day that she came to visit me. We had already started talking on Valentine's in 2017. And then she came to see me on May 20th of 2017. And then she just never left. Well, she did a couple times. Went back to California, and we went back and got the rest of her stuff, and and then we got married. But the rest is history. But yeah, it's a special day for us. But we consider Valentine kind of like our anniversary. We decided that would be the day that we would, make it official, and because that's the day we chose because that was the day we first talked. And the first time we spoke, it was just about her encounters and stuff like that, and then we just started talking about all kinds of stuff. Never thought I would get married or fall in love, but it happens. So, art contest. We got to talk about that. Mothman. We're doing Mothman, okay? And I don't have any of the submissions saved, but there's only been about 3 or 4. So whoever has drawn something for the Mothman contest, please resend it. And I do need some more. I need a few more. We only got about 10 days left in the month, so I need some more of the art submissions for the contest for the Mothman Art Contest. It's the Willie Williams Art Contest that we're doing every month, and it's in honor of my friend Willie, who's an artist, and he died last May. So if you guys could send me your art submissions for the Mothman contest. Plus, we need to start thinking about what we're going to do for the next month. What we're going to do for next month. Anybody has any suggestions? I was thinking an interesting one might be a centaur. I don't know. I thought it'd be cool to see if anybody could draw that. But I don't know if you guys can y'all hear the music? Is it too loud? It's coming in loud on my headphones. Ryan says Wendigo. We already did the rake. I guess we could make it specific instead of just saying Bigfoot. We could say the Jodis Bigfoot, the Gugwe Bigfoot. I thought about that. You can't just say reptilian because there's a lot of different reptilians. Dogman is huge. I mean, there's all kinds. I was going to be very specific maybe and just say the canine type dogman or the hyena dogman. So we got about 10 days to decide how we're going to do it. And y'all let me know. It could be the Wendigo, the Jodis, the Gugwe, the canine type dogman, the hyena type dogman, centaur, whatever you want to do. Just let me know. There's all kinds of the possibilities are endless. Somebody said Yeti. The Yeti would be a specific type of Bigfoot. Yeah, the problem with that, Ryan, why not stoke their creative fire, have them draw a collage of different Bigfoot, Genosqua, Gugwe, Yeti, urine all in one shot? If you did that, that would kind of like uh, kill the contest. We wouldn't have stuff to draw the rest of the time. Exactly. Amy said limits later art. Yeah, I'd like to profile them individually. When I was a kid and I collected cards, I always liked individual characters on the card, whether it was a baseball player or a garbage pail kid or whatever, just, the profile of one. I was never big on the team, and a bunch of them in one picture cards. It was just... Okay, that's actually, it says here, I have a serious question. Has anyone heard of someone or yourself having an encounter with something that looked like Lon Chaney's Wolfman? Yes, actually, there are people who've had encounters with things that look like something that resembled a Wolfman, more man than wolf type thing. Yeah, I've heard of that too. The pterodactyl thing is weird. The pterodactyl screams from Texas. There are a lot of stories here in Texas of pterodactyl-like creatures. I had a weird dream about them one time. I was with my buddy Squid. It was just me and him in this like trailer house, and this pterodactyl was swooping around outside trying to kill us. Very weird. I don't know why. Squid was in the dream with me. We were both being chased by it, but it just... I got someone who I've talked to recently, and I'm going to bring her on at some point and talk about dreams and the dreamscape and what it could mean, different types of dreams. And she's got a lot of very similar dreams and her ideas, interpretations of dreams, kind of like me. So we were talking the other day, this weekend about it, and maybe doing a spot about doing a show about dreams. Because everybody has dreams. I don't mean aspirations. I mean like dreams when you go to sleep. And I have theories about what you're doing when you dream and why you dream the way you dream. I have a lot of ideas about that. Anything else we need to announce? That's it. We haven't even decided what the topic of the show is going to be this coming Friday. We are going to record it tomorrow or Thursday, and we're going to decide what it's going to be. But we have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of material out there. So you guys want to start sending me your ideas. I was thinking about the praying mantis stories I got. We got one of a faith healer up in Kentucky. There was a lot of them. Reptilians and dinosaurs, centaurs. The one show I was thinking about doing, the Brazilian Exorcist. Also thinking about doing one. I've been needing to do one about the building that I touched on when Tony Duran was on my show. The guy that I grew up with. We saw, it was Black Hellhounds of Taylor, Texas. On that episode, we talked a little bit about that building that I worked at, and I thought about coming on and just talking about that and giving my experiences in that building. It's pretty interesting. I think it'd be interesting for everybody. It's got ghosts, cryptids, everything. Says, Josh, will you ever do a public appearance or a remote broadcast where we can meet you and the rest of the PRT family? I got some ideas. I'm open to maybe making it to some conferences or me and Ken Gerhard were trying to put together a Dogman conference before COVID happened. I just haven't been invited, and I don't know if I could go anyway. But if I did get invited, so I haven't been asked to go and speak at any conferences as of late. I don't really have time to go on other people's shows. Oh my gosh, too often. That is really loud. But I'm open to doing something like that. Thank you for that donation, Philip Goodwin. Appreciate it. Anybody who donates to the show definitely helps out. Because we have to rearrange our schedules to do this, like today and tomorrow. We have to miss work, and time is money. And we got some people showing up in the chat room. Do you need to do something? So we're going to call. We're going to make a phone call, and we're going to get some people on here. Okay. Paranormal potluck episode. That's a good idea. The property is we entered into a contract with the property, but we don't know what's going to happen yet. You never know with these things. I mean, you're not able to enter into it, and then it doesn't work out. We've had things fall through already multiple times, so we're hoping that things work out. All right, so guys, bear with me here. Just trying to let the chat fill up a little bit. Somebody posted in the comments last week, they were like, 20 minutes and nothing, I'm out. Well, right after that's when I started talking to Jody, so guess you missed it. So if you can't sit through the preliminaries and let the chat fill up and let me get through all the stuff I got to get through, I'm sorry. This music, it sounds like the Peanuts gang, or maybe Mr. Rogers. You know how he's all creepily taking off his clothes when he's like, hi, boys and girls, I'm here. He starts taking off his jacket, his sweater, and his shoes very deliberately. Then begins to talk to all his imaginary puppet friends. But he never talks to the person he has locked in his basement. Put the lotion in the basket. The Cabela's Skinwalker story. Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, it's a weird one. I don't know. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're about to make a phone call today. Just going to give it a few more minutes, giving them some time so they can finish their dinner and Music would be an issue. What does that mean? Okay. So we're going to make this phone call. Let's see, is it set up here? It's not set up. Okay. Let's go ahead and make this phone call.
Hey, brother, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. And can you hear me?
Let's see. Yes, sir. There we go.
Okay. Good deal. Can everybody say something, Johnny, for everybody so they can...
Sure. This is Johnny from Cryptid Studies Institute. And this is Elijah Henderson from Cryptid Studies Institute as well.
And
How are you guys doing this fine evening?
Johnny Henderson and your son Elijah, right?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful name, Elijah.
Hey, thank you, friend.
Johnny, your name not so much, but Elijah, you gotta. I'm just kidding, Johnny. Johnny his name is very normal, like mine. Mine's Josh. I never really liked
Actually,
that name.
Josh, yours is an amazing name. What you may not know about it is in the Hebrew language there are no J's.
Yeah.
And Joshua was actually the English version of Yahshua, which was actually the Hebrew name of Jesus.
Yeah, Yahshua or Yeshua. Some people would say Jesus or Isis, but
that's the Spanish incarnation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not incarnation, but version.
Yeah, and my name is Josue in Spanish, but yeah, Joshua, it means leader. It is in Hebrew, a letter. Yeah. I never really liked my name until last few years, and everybody just started calling me that again because everybody called me Wolf for years and years. Even my own family always just called me Wolf.
Yeah, it seems like I was seeing some almost like Chuck Norris style sayings about you recently.
Yeah, there's been people were making memes and they were doing a it was almost like a little contest where they were trying to do a selfie where I take a selfie but I don't smile. And so there was like this Josh Turner selfie going on, and then they were doing the Chuck Norris memes. Voltron76, thank you for your donation. I appreciate that. That's very generous of you. Says Dick Richards, Jesus Christ is the King. Yes, he is. Everybody who is in the chat room, I want to introduce you to the kind gentlemen that have come on today. I had Jody Cook on last week talking about the LBL and a guy named Roger or Tyler, depending upon what you know him as.
His real name is Roger.
Roger.
Tyler was a name that he was basically testing the waters with because he had some harassment and didn't want to be on social media using his real name because he had some harassment from somebody who was practically stalking him, and so he was just using the name Tyler for a while.
Okay. And so what happened, folks, to bring you up to speed, not last week and not the week before. The week before I was dying of a kidney stone. The week before that. So that would have been 3 weeks ago, I guess. The story came out. It had come out and people were sending me links to it immediately. Like once it dropped, I was getting messaged left and right, and I was looking and I was like, what is this? The first couple that came through, I just kind of was like, I get stuff all the time from other people's podcasts, and I usually just kind of ignore it. It's not anything rude, or as I'm not trying to act better than anybody else. In Spanish we would call it chicante, but I'm not a chicante type person. No, I was just I'm very busy and I have a lot going on. I run a business a very large business, and then I have the show, and I have to do a lot of interviewing witnesses and things like that. And the message kept coming through, and it was Cryptid Studies Institute. And it just kept coming through, and it was about the LBL. A witness comes forward from the LBL. So finally, I opened it up. It was about an hour long. So I told my wife, I said, okay, so I put it on the TV, and I said, let me watch this and see what's going on. I had never watched your show before, and it was nothing personal. I don't even watch, like, hardly any other podcasts. I don't even watch very much TV. It's every now and then, whenever I can get the time to check something out. But I did, and I was impressed with you guys. You guys are very honest and Christian, and I like that aspect of it. And so I was taken in by the story that this guy Roger, who, like you said, was using the alias of Tyler, but his name was Roger, and he came forward and he gave a story about a family that was Amish, and that they had left their homeland and ended up in the LBL. Subsequently, they were attacked by something and killed. And he was a survivor of that attack, and he witnessed it. And then he came on and he talked to you guys on the show. Well, after that story broke, I came on my show and I talked about it. Well, there was a big war in the comments section that I couldn't believe. Bunch of comments had to get deleted because it was like me and you had talked about, Johnny. It was very potty mouth. There was a lot of cussing and threatening, and people were making threats. And so me and my team had to go through there, like 3 of us, and just pick all these comments out and throw them out. It was pretty bad.
We had to delete a ton ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Quite.
Yeah, and so it got ridiculous, and then there were accusations being made by different people. I was getting messages from all kinds of people that were attacking me, saying that I was trying to stir up a controversy. I'm like, look, dude, all I did was, talk about it. I didn't even, I was very unbiased. So Jody Cook, who was a friend of mine from the NADP, he had his opinions about it. And so I brought him on last week, and I gave him a platform to talk about it, and I reserve my judgment on it. But he made some valid points, depending on what side you want to sit on, But I'm not here to pick sides, and I'm not here to pass judgment on reserving that, because I want to hear all angles of this story, all sides of this story. So I got harassed a little bit this past week. They're like, hey, you let Jody come on there and say what he was going to say, and you didn't let these other guys come on there. And I was like, well, you don't know me too well, because I always plan to, tell both sides of it. Now, you reached out to me, Johnny, and I appreciated that. And I talked to you about a few things, and we decided to set up you guys come on this week, and you guys can tell it from your perspective. Before we go any further, though, I'd like to say something about Johnny. I want everyone to pray in earnest for Johnny's wife and the healing of Christ upon his wife's body. She is afflicted with cancer, and I want everybody to pray for her. So anybody out there that's listening, if you're a listener of mine, as a personal favor to me, please pray for her. Lift her up in your prayers, folks. If you could do that, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Josh, I appreciate that more than you can know.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're probably the only person that I would actually come on their show right now, because almost the very day that we released the Roger thing, we found out that my wife's cancer had spread, and we were having trouble. And I was getting certain individuals, texting and everything, with me sitting in the hospital trying to figure out how to get her, life-saving treatment, and I was starting to get really, really stressed out, because the last thing on my mind right now is whether a murder 40 years ago that nobody can prove one way or the other actually took place. I'm just wanting my wife well. And so when I talked to you, I decided, Josh is decent guy, so I will go on this time, Elijah and I, and try to, it's not our place to defend Roger. His story's got to rise or fall on its own merits, and we'll get into some of that stuff in a little bit. But my wife is my primary concern, and so we're going to do your show, and I think Elijah promised us on some other show. I don't even know if they know about Roger. Hopefully it's just a regular interview or something later on.
Yeah, I haven't quite got the
But
details
beyond that,
about
we don't plan to be pursuing much more of this for a while until we get her on the road to recovery.
She's the most important priority to us right now.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I can say is I would like you guys to come on again at some point and let us record, because we started touching on some pretty interesting subjects beyond the scope of this. And you guys were talking about the Bell Witch, which is very interesting. I've read a lot about that.
We're working on a 5 to 7 part series on that right now. We got the first part up.
Yeah, it should be about a total of probably 6 or 7 hours long.
Yeah, well, 15. A normal script for us on one of our Nightmare Nuggets is about 15 pages, which is about an hour. And right now we're well over 80-something pages into the Bell Witch script.
And we're still polishing up the script and trying to get it finished, so it'll be probably well beyond that.
But hopefully they'll get my wife on a treatment plan and get something that's starting to work for her. You know, I know we got to go get some little spots they found in her brain irradiated next week. They think they've got a 90% chance of stopping those right now before they get spread. So we're going to get that done next week, and we go this week to find out what kind of treatment option they're going to give her.
That's awesome that they're going to be able to do that. That's incredible, and that's a blessing in and of itself. And so hopefully you guys will get that worked out. Never give
We'd
up.
be more than happy to come on anybody's show and do anything they need.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely want to come back and get you guys on, and we can chop it up about the Bell Witch or any other things that you'd like to talk about, cryptids and whatnot. We have a very similar view, us gentlemen, about this whole genre. So that being said, do you guys want to delve right into how you went about meeting this individual and telling your side of things?
Sure. I was wondering how you'd want us to start. First off, I want to say and start out here, and I think Elijah is the same thing. A lot of people have been badgering us, wanting us to go on a show and try to debate Jody Cook and prove Jody's wrong about everything and he's a bad guy. Well, if that's what you're expecting out of us, you're not going to get it.
Not at all.
I mean, we like the dickens out of Jody, so we're not going to be sitting here bad-mouthing him. Jody and North American Dogman have every right in this world. If they feel there's something skeptical about this case, they have every right to look into it.
I mean, we've known Jody for a little while now, and we've liked him ever since. We've spent quite amount of time just shooting the breeze with him. He's a great guy.
We really like Jody. But at the same time, we've kind of got to know Roger, and we like Roger too. You know, when you're a kid, you hear that old phrase, "You can't take a friend for a friend."
Yeah.
So if these guys don't like each other, that's something they're going to have to work out. I'm not going to sit around and badmouth either one of them.
No.
Jody's got a right to believe what he believes, and Roger's got a right to say what he wants to. If he's wrong, he'll pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
But how this all got started, we spent Christmas over in Standing Stone Park in Tennessee making another Nightmare Nugget video. And while we were there was a bombing in Nashville that knocked out all the phone services for the state. And so we didn't have any idea anything was going on, anybody is making comments or anything. And on our way home after Christmas, they got the phone service restarted, and we were checking messages, checking our YouTube videos, and we seen that somebody had made a comment on our LBL video. We made one about the Beast of LBL about a year ago with the best evidence we had at the time. We went back to the original Jan Thompson interview and listened to it word for word, got those transcripts, and followed exactly where the description of the land and the lay of the land was, and went and found what we believe to be the original site from her description where the incident took place. You know, we found the cut off light poles. We found the old destroyed bathhouses, we believe, and
Old copper stakes,
Yeah.
boundary markers, water pipes.
things of that nature that led us to believe that we had found the authentic site of the attack. And so we made a video. And while we were in Standing Stone, somebody had made a comment under the name of Tyler, and they started sharing information that they had no way of knowing unless they'd actually been there, and alluding to different things about the case. And I wrote back on the comment and told them if they really had this information, then I'd like to speak with them. Well, I left my personal phone number, and at the time Tyler started texting me, and we were talking by text at first, and he wanted to make sure I wasn't associated with certain people because he had had a bad run-in with some people and didn't want to have anything to do with them anymore. And I'm not calling any names. I don't think he'd want me to call names. But when I assured him I wasn't a part of any of these individuals, he began to open up and share more and more things with me. And it caught our attention that he was describing where in our video we had said we thought the incident took place. And we questioned him about it. He said, you guys were dead right. Exactly where you said that it took place is where it took place. And so I started asking him more questions, and he was able to describe the landscape and the cemetery and different aspects of the land that unless you had been there, you wouldn't have any idea what it was. And then he began to share more and more details with us, and ultimately it was the story that everyone heard on our channel. And before we decided to really give much credence to it, you know, we started checking out. He shared the name of the individuals, told us where they were from, what the family name was, and what city they lived in, what drove, just all this information. So we set about and started trying to see if there really was this Ordnung. And if it was there, were there actually individuals by the last name that he gave me? And things of that nature, you know. And to this day, we can't prove that Roger's, you know, truthful. He sounds truthful. We haven't ever been able to catch him in an untruth.
And when you talk to him, he seems like a very honest gentleman, you know. You can just kind of almost sense an honesty coming off of him when you speak with him.
And I can understand his story sounds fantastical, but
right.
we decided to go forward with the story because we could not prove any aspect of it was untrue. And we tried. And we figured that, you know, the public had the right to at least hear what he had to say, and they could make the decision whether or not they believed him. You know, this was never about money for us because we don't take, well, we don't ask for a single nickel. You know, we don't have a, what is that one thing?
We don't have a
Patreon or anything like that.
Monetize our channel. We still have the option where we can apply. I mean, we've just never done that.
Unfortunately, I'm not up on what these pay things are, and I was telling people that we don't have an OnlyFans. I didn't know that was a sex thing, so if you heard me say that, we don't have an OnlyFans.
No,
I'm not a sex worker, I promise. And they might pay me not to show pictures, but
Cover up your camera.
yeah, but we don't do this because we are trying to get money or anything like that. Because we do it as a hobby. We love it. It's a passion for us, you know, and we spend a great amount of time and effort and money to bring these nightmare nuggets to people, or expense out of our own pocket. And so we weren't trying to get anything out of it. Roger isn't trying to get anything out of it. He just let us know that he's getting older, and if something happened to him, he said that there'd be nobody to tell the truth. And since then, man, we had no idea the firestorm that was going to ignite putting that on there.
Oh, yeah.
We are constantly getting written and
emailed
and
messages.
criticized and things of that nature. And it's really bizarre that people have this much passion about this story. But when we ask him, when did it happen? Can you give me the dates? Without missing a beat, without even having to think about it, he told us instantly, April 7th, I think it was a Wednesday, 1982. Asked him what the weather was, and he told us the weather, and asked him about the moon phase. He told us the moon phase, and all these things. We went back into old almanacs and like old weather stations and things of that nature and looked it up, and everything he said matched up. Now, does that prove that he was telling the truth? I mean, I'm sure if you're like a mastermind genius or something, you could, go look up what the weather was and things of that nature, but without missing a beat, though, he told us all this information. So we believed that he knew something, and we felt like the public had a right to know.
And I just want to add, I mean, we've been talking to this gentleman for quite a while,
Yeah, since Christmas.
And his details have stayed the same throughout the entire time we've been talking to him.
Other than something simple like, if he gets tongue-tied or something and says 20 instead of 30, or it was on the left or instead of the right, just little simple things that anybody get tongue-tied on. But he's not missed a beat, and his story hasn't altered at all.
Well, here, I have a question for you. One of my fans just said, Jonathan Miller, why wasn't Roger in school on a Wednesday? It wasn't spring break.
Now that I don't know. He's going to have to explain that. He's telling some story about it, but I'm afraid I actually missed it. His grandparents lived there in LaGrange, and he was staying with them for some reason. He was originally from Iowa, and he was back and forth with them. But that's between him and his family. I don't know why they had let him go to his grandparents like that.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess, it depends. I mean, this was back in the 80s. You could get out of school with a note from your parents, to go do whatever. It was a lot different. And they didn't have, I know back in the 80s, we didn't have the same thing where if you missed a certain number of days or whatever, then it wasn't the same system where it became more, truancy became more harsh. I know here in Texas anyway. I don't know how it got, where he was from. But I'm
gonna be honest, guys. When I was in fourth grade, for whatever reason, we moved and I never re-registered back in school. But the next, or maybe it's third grade, and when I went back to school the next year, I just told them that I'd been away at a school out of town, and they kept writing at school, and they're like, "We don't have a record of this kid." And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I was there, because I'd went there a few years before when I was like in second grade, I think, and I knew some teachers' names. And people do weird things, But the school system believed me, and they just assumed that I'd went through the whole third grade,
Well, my nephew tried to pull something similar. Zane tried to tell when he transferred from one school in South Austin over here to North Austin. When he was in high school, he tried to tell them when he got registered because they didn't have his records yet. Which in this day and age didn't seem like it should be that hard. This was only like 10 years ago. And they were like, well, what grade were you in? He was like, I was in 9th and I'm going into the 10th. And so they stuck him in 10th grade classes. Then his records came through and showed that he flunked every freshman class. So he had to go back and be put in freshman classes about 2 or 3 weeks in. You remember that, Anthony? Yeah. Probably doesn't like me talking about that because that's embarrassing. And I was aggravated because I was like, you sat there and lied to these people and told them that you were. So yeah, the school system's not perfect. So yeah, that's easily explainable. I mean, if he's going on a trip or whatever, I left on a 2-week trip. And we were gone for a week, like I think after spring break or a week before spring break, and we went out to the West Coast, out to California. I did that with my parents when I was a little kid. So I mean, it could happen. That's not like a deal breaker for me. I mean, I don't know. But
Right. But I'd like to point out, though, that now that I'm a grown man, I do not lie. You know, I was telling you the other night that as I've studied, the Bible says that all liars will have their part in the lake of fire, not some liars or big liars, all liars. So I try extraordinarily hard to be completely honest now.
And we both feel that way.
Yeah, so I'm never going to tell you guys a dishonesty if I know it to be dishonest. I just want everybody to know that.
yeah, and so you guys, when you first, began to talk to Roger, your first impression was that he was an upstanding, honest guy. That was like your first impression?
My first impression was just like everybody, there's no way this story could be true. And then as, I began to look into it, when I got off the phone with him the first time, the first thing that I did was backtrack his phone number, when he gave me his real name. And it told me exactly where he lives, exactly what his phone number is, exactly who he is. And so I realized this guy's being honest. He's telling the truth. He's not going to give out his real information, if he's trying to be dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the more I looked into it and tracked down everything that I could track down, it seemed very credible. So we developed a belief that he has been more honest. Not that we thought he was a liar to begin with, but you've got to have a healthy skepticism.
Yeah. And after talking to him on multiple occasions, do you firmly stand behind what he says? Like, do you feel convicted that he's telling the truth?
Well, Josh, you never can be certain. I mean, you honestly can't. There's people who can lie to your face. He seems honest, and we've not been able to catch him in a lie of any sort. We've not found any dishonesty in him. But could he still be deceiving us? Could we be hoodwinked? Sure, we could. But we've just not been able to find him being dishonest in any way. Now, if I catch him being dishonest, of course I'm going to change my thoughts on it.
I suppose our stance now is just talking to him. He seems like a very honest man, and everything that he said that we can track down proof for, we find no deception in him, so I guess that's where we're at.
Of course, we've been getting long, tireless litanies of people who writing us, telling us where he's lying and how he's lying, and all they're doing is regurgitating what they've heard somebody else say, and a few of those things are just absolutely not true. And if you'd like me to, I can touch on a few of those, that, and I'm not going to, I know Jody said some of these things, but other people have said them too, and then, we get all these other people who listen to 9 different people, and then they'll write us telling us, well, Roger's lying because of this, or Roger's lying because of that, and some of these things just are not valid arguments.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I tried to do during last week's episode, I tried to preface it multiple times with, I don't know, Roger. I don't know, if and so a lot of what Jody was saying made sense. Not 100%. I mean, wasn't 100% on board with either side. But Jody did have some valid arguments. But you and me have talked, and there are some things, and like you said, you preface it with, you're not trying to step on Jody's toes or the NADP.
Oh,
you're not trying
absolutely
to start anything with them or anything like that. But
and I don't want anybody else harassing Jody and them. They've done a lot of good, respectable work in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And him and Roger have beef with each other, and I think they'd get along better if they would just be a little more amicable with one another.
It's very bad. Well, here's the thing I wanted to know. I mean, from my perspective, and I would like to speak with Roger myself, but the thing is, I have to get all parties that were involved and get everybody's side of it. What you guys have pointed out, there were a couple things that you made points about in particular you were talking about the Amish community. Okay, that was one of the things that intrigued me because you had made a point, and I had looked into this too, about the selling of the property. If you want to go over the story, and then you can tell me what you found out about about that part of the story, the Amish.
Yes. One of the problems some people have with Roger's story is that he said that they had a safe in their vehicle that contained a large sum of money. Now, he never said for sure where they got it, but he assumed that it came from them selling their property when they left the Ordnung. Mm-hmm. Now, before I touch on that, I've got to touch on this. You know, a lot of people say, well, there's no way that an Amish guy would have a driver's license. Well, if you look up Amish groups on Facebook and different places where people who have come out of the Amish world, many of them will tell you the first thing they done when they left the Ordnung was to get a driver's license. Mm-hmm. So we don't know how long he had been out of the Ordnung before he even got a driver's license, you know, and for that matter, before he got a gun, you know, because I know that had come up too, that Amish didn't use shotguns. Well, if you left the Ordnung, you might, you know, maybe he's gone 2 years, maybe 3, we don't know. But people are arguing that the Amish don't sell their property, that it goes back to the community. Well, that's just not true. You can look up Amish and banking and find the principles that are used. The Amish rarely ever use credit except for major purchases like property, perhaps livestock. But when banks loan them the money or the note goes into the name of an individual. It don't go into the name of a community. You know, banks really don't do that. They may do it nowadays with an LLC, but they rarely, if ever, put notes into the name of like a community. So they have to have an individual to go to collect that money if the note comes due. So the property would have been in the family's name, and they had a right to sell it. Now, almost across the board, when they leave the Ordnung, they do sell it back to the community. But they do have the right to sell it. It doesn't just return back to the community.
Yeah. And so that would be the explanation for why they had this large sum of money, and that would be the explanation. Like, so that explains that part.
Yes, and Amish do definitely use banks. You know, they have savings accounts, they have checking accounts, and I know this because when I was a young man, I worked at Walmart, and when the Amish or the Mennonite came in, we weren't even allowed to ask them for ID because they were considered to be such honest people, mm-hmm. and they wrote checks.
Okay. So that's that, and then the other thing we had talked about, and this is another aspect of the story. You said that when he climbed underneath the vehicle when the attack took place by two, he said there were two creatures that were very canine-like, upright canines. Sounds like Dogman. When they did the assault, he was up underneath a vehicle. Do you want to explain that part too? There was another discrepancy there that was...
Yes, there was a discrepancy here. You know, several people are writing us, telling us, well, there's no way he could have done that he would have scalded himself, he'd have burned himself terribly on the drive shaft. Well, I heard people say that they went to a mechanic and questioned him. So I did the same thing. And what the mechanic told us is that the the drive shaft itself doesn't generate heat. The only heat builds up around the universal joint on each end, and there's not enough heat transfer there to make the whole drive shaft hot. And that drive shaft is anywhere on that model from 52 to 72 inches long. And if you're hot 6 inches down on each end, you've still got plenty of room that a person could have hovered above that thing and been perfectly fine.
And Roger
go ahead.
Roger had already mentioned to us that he was very small for his age.
Yeah, he said he was very small for his age, and he said that it was actually longer than he was, that he is a very small boy. But what a lot of people don't even stop to think about is outside air temperature would have made a big difference, too. And I told you already that we looked up the weather reports for that day. We went to like some old news stations that had some like old, I don't know what you would call them, like almanacs or organizations that keep weather reports for different areas. And many of the counties that from LaGrange down to there by Grand Rapids, Kentucky, is that it? Grand Rivers, Grand Rivers, not Grand Rapids, were pretty chilly that day. Some of the counties coming from LaGrange actually received a little bit of snow. Not much, but they got some snow. And the temperatures hovered anywhere from the low to mid and upper 30s all the way up to the mid 40s like it was in Grand Rapids. Grand Rivers. Man, I'm so tired tonight I can't even keep my thoughts together. So the outside air temperature, with them being there anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, would surely cooled off those universal joints.
Yeah, and we talked about that. So that part of the story is explained. Now, there's another aspect to it now, the building. You said there was a building on the left when you first came in. Do you want to explain that part too?
Yes. Now, this one is something that Jody himself said, and I think Jody is just misremembering the landscape down there when he said this. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm calling Jody a liar.
No.
Not by any stretch of the imagination. But the area where it happened, Roger says that after he got out from underneath the RV and ran up to the road, he turned to the right and started down that road. But Jody said that doesn't make any sense. If he had just turned his head left and looked, he would have saw the visiting center. Well, that's absolutely impossible. I went down the other day and I took pictures from both ends, from the visiting center and from the road Roger would have been on, and you cannot see either location from either end. It's about anywhere from a mile to maybe a mile and a half away, over a hill and around a curve. It's impossible to see. There's not even if there wasn't a leaf on a tree, you couldn't see it. And so that's very, very provable right there. And I even went so far as to go in and talk to the lady working there. She had been there for several years, and I asked her how long it had been there. And she didn't know exactly, but she didn't think that the visiting center as it is now was even around in 1982. She said that it actually started out there as a couple of bathrooms with a covered pavilion that they in later years built onto and made the visiting center. So that thing may not have even been there, that Roger could have seen it if he was close enough to see it, which there was absolutely no way to see.
Mm-hmm. Somebody made a point on here. They said, let me see who it was here. How could two apex predators not smell him?
Well, I think there's a fairly reasonable explanation for that, because there would have been a little bit of blood, the scent of blood lingering in the air, because Roger said that when Levi shot, he hit the creature, but he also hit Stephen a little bit too, so you do got a little bit of blood flying in the air.
Well, and wait a minute, everybody's also saying that Roger said that these were perfectly clean kills. Roger never ever, if you go back and listen to that, Roger never said that they were perfectly clean kills.
Right.
He said he thought that it may have bit Stephen in the neck, and he thought that it may have bit Levi in the neck or broke their necks.
And I think
and even I think I may be wrong that Diane may have had some damage, but they weren't horribly mangled.
Yeah, I remember.
And anybody that says that predators don't do clean kills has never read Teddy Roosevelt's book, The Wilderness Hunter, because if you go back and read that incident, Elijah, you going to handle this one?
Yeah, the 1893 book, The Wilderness Hunter, written by Teddy Roosevelt. he included a section in there. A fella he knew told him that he and a friend of his had been out trapping for beaver in the woods, and long story short, they've been attacked by something, and it was trying to attack them. So, following a night of it, I guess trying to breach their camp a little bit, howling at them and whatnot, they woke up the next morning and like, "Here, you start packing up the camp, and I'm gonna go gather our beaver traps, and we'll just get out of here." So one guy starts packing up the camp, and the other guy starts to go get the traps. And by the time the fellow was named Bauman, by the way. By the time Bauman got back to the camp, his friend was dead. There was 4 fang marks in his neck. His neck was broken, and it looked like whatever this thing was had rolled over him a few times and just kind of wallered him. But it was a clean kill. He wasn't damaged, but whatever this thing was, it snuck up behind him and just quietly killed him.
And I've got a friend who had 40 sheep or 40 goats killed in one night by 2 dogs. They went down and attacked them and didn't mangle them, largely broke their necks, and then just went on to the next one. So animals do kill. That's not just savagely mutilating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that story has always fascinated me, about the guy whose friend was killed. And I believe Teddy Roosevelt believed in Bigfoot too, actually.
I think so. And I want to point out that we're not trying to defend Roger here, but when people are making arguments that don't really hold water, I think that we really need to say, now, wait a minute, whether you believe Roger or not, don't be building your evidence on something that can be explained, There's a lot of circumstantial evidence that's got to go with anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and so,
another thing I've heard people say, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Josh, is people keep writing us telling us there's no way that the Amish would have ever called that little girl Franny or Fanny because that's a girl's butt. Well, Fanny is one of the most popular Amish names out there. You can look it up anywhere. Fanny is actually a derivative of Francis. So that's absolutely not true for somebody to say that they would never use the name Franny or Fanny. Levi and Stephen are absolutely Amish names. I've spent the afternoon trying to make sure that I had my stuff together to talk to you today. But
they're all common names.
Yeah, they're all common names. And see, Diane and Connie aren't common names, and I don't know how much you know about the Amish community themselves. Amish are largely really good people, but there are dark elements within the Amish community.
Oh yeah.
And every year, a lot of people leave the Amish community because they're dissatisfied, because I don't know if you know it or not, but there's what they call Amish mafia. Mm-hmm. There are criminal elements among the Amish. There's people who leave every year because they're facets of the Amish that are into a type of witchcraft. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact,
and I've even got other books. It is called The Long Lost Friend. It's very popular on a lot of Ordnungs, and there are darker books too. And sexual abuse is rampant in a lot of Ordnungs. Mm-hmm. So who's to say that, and I don't know this, I'm just speculating, who's to know that Levi and his family didn't leave because of that? And if it happened to be sexual abuse, then don't you think that maybe Diane might not want to associate herself with the Ordnung and may have changed her name to not seem as Amish?
Yeah, somebody made the comment earlier in the section. It said maybe the creatures were not there to kill Roger, but to kill the Amish family, because when they left, and this is one of the theories I first posed when I first heard the story on your guys' channel, I was watching it with my wife, and I told her, I said, she was
I think it could have been witchcraft healing.
That's what I said, and I mentioned that 3 weeks ago when I first talked about this story. They could have conjured something up. Now, in that area of the LBL, these creatures that people that see, they don't. To me, it doesn't really look like Bigfoot, and it doesn't really look like Dogman. It looks like something like an offshoot. I call them devil monkeys, and I say that because
I've called that.
Yeah, and they live, I believe, in the cave systems, and I believe that they could be they could be denizens of the inner earth. For I mean, their earth there's an inner earth, and people
like the Hollow Earth theory.
Yeah, I mean, there are creatures that live within the earth. I mean, in the book of Job, it's when God talks to Satan, he says, "Where hast thou been?" He says, "I've been walking to and fro upon and within the earth." And that's a very odd passage. And as a child, it always scared me because I'm thinking, whoa, this dude was walking with earthly feet up on and within the earth.
Downward in the earth.
Yeah. And so, to me, I think that there are things that we can't possibly comprehend, and we are kept ignorant. Now, there are people that are willfully ignorant that just choose to ignore the dark side of things, and they choose to pretend like it doesn't exist. Just like people who choose to not believe in angels or divine intervention or God. They just choose to not believe, and they're ignorant, and they do it at their own peril. But I'm not here to proselytize today. I'm just going to tell people, there's a whole lot of stuff out there, folks, and if you're not protected, I mean, the Amish, there are elements of witchcraft that take place within the Amish community. I talked about that on my show. There were some Amish kids that worked for us when I was working downtown running a nightclub, and they came from Rumspringa, and they never went back. And the girl had left. She had her reasons for leaving because she was being abused. There was a woman that was abusive to her because she had been taken in by another family, and the, I guess, dad or whatever had she didn't say that she was sexually abused, but she said that he seemed to have feelings for her or something, or caught feelings for her. And the wife was very mean to her. And so the first chance she got, she was gone. The two boys didn't want to live under the stricture of the Amish community. And so they took their leave during Rumspringa, and they never came back. So that does happen. There's a lot of people that leave the Amish community, and working with one of them in particular, he went by the name of Jamie. That wasn't his name, was Jeremiah, but we called him Jamie. That was the English name he chose because they call our society the English world. And he told us stories of witchcraft and a lot of weird stuff, man. Like they had
absolutely,
and they had a creature that was very much like Pan type creature that was common that they would see. And they believed that it was something that was conjured up. And it would show itself around the time of harvest, according to him, and people would see it. And it had actually attacked somebody's house, and they think that it was a curse that was put on there, and it was conjured up, kind of like in the Mexican tradition and the Mexican folklore. I've done a lot of shows on that. The cadejo. The cadejo is brought up by a petrica. It's a curse that somebody puts on you, and it'll attack you, and it'll maul you. But then when it's done killing you, it doesn't really leave any signs of mutilation. It's like your heart has just stopped. And so it's something that people would see in the fields, the migrant workers, they would see the cadejo. It was very specific. It would pass 20, 30 people and go straight to someone and then maul that person, killing them, and then leave them laying there, and then their body would look like nothing had happened. They just fell over dead. But you had 20, 30 witnesses that saw this big black dog attack and maul that particular worker because somebody was practicing Santa Muerta, and they put something on that person. Same thing goes with the Amish. I mean, this could have been a curse. There could be, and here's a theory. And I mean, this is just something I'm throwing out there. I'm not saying that this is the gospel, but my belief is that the devil monkey creatures, they're actually from that area, but I believe that they are evil, and I believe that they could be used to summon. They could summon them and kind of use them as a target. Remote viewing is a science, so to speak. I know two remote viewers very well. One of them has proven his abilities by remote viewing my Dogman encounter. And he was very spot on about the colors and the houses and all these things that aren't even there anymore. And he knew these things I had never talked about in public. And so this remote viewer, we talked about it not really being a science so much as like it's a magic. It's almost like magic, but we would just call it that because we don't understand it. Just like black magic could be turned into black science. They could have used a remote view to send these creatures, to do the bidding of to hurt those people. I mean, it's very possible. Like they put a curse on them, a hex, and they left the community because maybe they were at odds with someone, or maybe they were under demonic attack. That was magic that was being used, and so they remote viewed these creatures and used them because they are lower level entities who I've heard of remote viewers saying that people can manipulate the lower level entities, almost controlling them, like how would you describe it? Almost like virtual reality. I mean, you can literally like use them, but it only works on certain lower level entities. When you get up to the higher level of demons and things like that, you're not going to be able to control anything like that. Once it's unleashed too, it's like you're not putting the genie back in the bottle. But that is something that I thought about, and I know it gets a little deep and it gets a little weird, but it's a very real possibility that this is what could have happened, and Roger was not the target. And so
that may be why he survived.
That's something that I've thought about. If his story is to be believed, and like I said, I'm not doubting him. I'm not doubting Jody's research. I'm not picking sides here. And you guys and Jody, I think, are honest people. And you're just like me. You're just trying to get to the bottom of it. And I think that a lot of what has been said up to this point has been picked apart and dissected, and I think that there's been a little bit too much made out of certain little details because, when you go back and you listen to people's stories, you could pick apart anybody's story. I could tell you that I got out of my truck earlier and walked up here to the office, and you could sit there and go, I walked in with my jacket on. Well, why'd you walk in with your jacket on? It wasn't that cool that day. It was, and that's all subjective. Like how cool it is to you. It was cool enough for me to wear my sweater, and then I just didn't take it off because we didn't change the temperature in here. But you could say, well, he wouldn't have had a sweater on because, obviously it was too warm that day for that. It was 72 degrees. Nobody's going to wear a sweater at 72 degrees. I mean, and then you could pick apart anything. And then but then you get into ticky tack and nitpick this and that, and then it gets a little carried away. And some of the stuff that I've been getting this last week really is really aggravating because a lot of it revolves around people just sitting there with way too much time on their hands, picking apart every little thing that you guys said, every little thing that Jody said, every little thing that this guy Roger said, and it's all like just people choosing sides and then twisting the argument to fit whatever side that they want to be on. And, people do that with everything, Johnny. What they do with religion, and Johnny and Elijah, this. People will go out of their way and they will actually choose a religion that is in lockstep with their predisposed beliefs. In other words,
oh yeah,
it's like I'm going to become Methodist because I like I feel that's what's I like that because that's what works for me. I'm going to become Islamic because I feel that's what works for me. I'm going to be a Buddhist because that's what instead of you're brought up into the strictures of a religion and you stick to it and adhere to it because that's what you feel is right, so you do it and you mold yourself to fit into that religion. A lot of times people just go out and they cherry pick a religion that will most fit them. And of course, that's one thing that's so attractive for witchcraft and Satanism and all this other stuff is because one of the major tenets of Satanism is what? Do what thou wilt.
Cool.
So you can just do whatever the heck you want and have no guilt, and you can, murder, kill, rape, whatever, steal. You're not going to have a problem, because there's no consequences. I mean, it's like it's a free-for-all. So that's why people end up doing that. And I've always said this too. It's a sucker's deal. If you dabble in the dark arts and you practice black magic, black science, whatever you want to call it, and you mess with that, okay, it's a very short-term reward for a very long-term punishment. You're playing a
Oh, absolutely. You know, when you crawl into bed with evil, evil will always steal the covers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a sucker's deal. I tell people that all the time. And people will look at things and be like, it seems like the evil is winning, this and that. Well, if you ever watch football, I'm a big Cowboys fan, back in the day. And I like the Buccaneers too. They just won recently. But the Cowboys are my main team. And Staubach was the king of comeback. You'd be down the fourth quarter and the game's not over yet. And it looks like you're going to lose. Well, you can't, that's the same thing. You can't count out just because evil is looking like, oh, it's really flexing its muscle. It's doing really well and everything's going its way. It doesn't mean that it's going to win. Evil will always have its season. There's a time and a place for everything and a purpose under heaven. That's like, everybody knows that. There is a time and a place for everything. A time for harvest, a time for planting, and the evil, the devil will have his time. He will have his sway. But in the end, the result's going to be the same. And what's even more telling is getting into religion here, just kind of for a minute there, going off if you look at religions,
you're not going to hurt my feelings with it.
Well, no. they all kind of mirror each other. I mean, it's very odd. I mean, people don't realize that Hinduism has a lot in common with Christianity. When you think of the time of the Kali Yuga, is basically like Revelations. And it's like all this bad stuff's going to happen and all these bad people are just going crazy and doing all this bad stuff. And then Krishna, Kalik, which sounds very much like Christ, and not just in name, but what he does, he returns. And it's odd because the main antagonist in that is a particular country, and then he goes after that particular country, and that's where the war starts. And then he sweeps across the earth and cleanses the darkness, and the bad people all go to where they belong, and the good people, transcend. And that's very much like Revelations. And so it's odd that there's so many differences in religion. Even in Islam, they believe that Christ is going to return. They don't, it's not Muhammad, it's Christ. They actually believe that Jesus will return and he's going to do all these things. There's a very narrow, chasm, just a very narrow schism there or whatever that separates us from all these different religions. And I believe that there are truths in our religions. Now, I do believe, though, that the only way to the Father is through the Son. And that's my belief, my personal belief. And I believe that that's the only way you can get out of the Kali Yuga that we're in. You can call it whatever you want, the destruction that we're in, because evil is having its day. It's having a field day right now. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, and I think that these creatures appearing and attacking, I believe that there's something to it. I believe that we're in the earlier stages of what could possibly be something that's ramping up, and you're getting more and more reports, back in the 80s, it was a lot more sparse, but you're just getting more and more. In the 90s, there were more, and then there were more in the 2000s, and it just started getting more and more and more and more and more. And
if you want to get into conspiracy theory, the Bible says that one day we'll flee to the wilderness. Mm-hmm. Now, don't you think that maybe some force might want to keep us from going into the wilderness and maybe put things there?
Yeah, and that's another thing too. I mean, like I've talked to people multiple times. I've interviewed people, and we've talked, in private, and we've talked on air, about possible government experiments and things. I believe that these creatures have been there for a long time. I believe that they're the Nephilim, and I believe that they have taken them and have done. I did a show with Lon Strickler, and we talked about Dulce, the Dulce base, and the things that the experiments that have gone on there, and people that claim to have escaped from there, and and it's the same thing with.
Did you say the Dulce base?
Excuse me?
Did you just say the Dulce base?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I was watching something the other night about a gentleman who claimed to have had a battle with some sort of aliens under there who died under mysterious circumstances.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about that, weren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, and then you were talking about Hellier, that's a show that came on Netflix or something.
Actually, YouTube series.
It's a 5-part YouTube series.
Yeah, and so Hellier and the guy that is on that, he's actually a friend of mine on Facebook, and I haven't really spoken to him much, but
Mr. Newkirk.
Excuse me?
Mr. Newkirk, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. And so, the Hellier, that wasn't far away from where you're at.
No, up here around Somerset and areas of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you had Hopkinsville, with the little goblins or the gremlins, the Hopkinsville, the attack on the farm in
Borders
Hopkinsville.
Hopkinsville.
Excuse me?
The town I live in borders Hopkinsville.
Hopkinsville, yeah. And I don't think it's a coincidence that there's a giant underground cave system in that whole area. If you guys did the Bell Witch, you studied the Bell Witch, you would know this. The first
Yes.
appearance when this witch, this entity, began doing what it did and attacking the family, when John Bell was first being afflicted, and then in particular, his daughter, there was a strange hairy creature that was seen, and of course there was a cave that they claimed that the witch came from. I believe that this is all relative. Now, my friend Brenton Solon, before he passed, we were talking about collaborating, and we were getting ready to do some stuff, and he unfortunately got cancer, and he passed away. And his videos are no longer up, which is just aggravates me. But anyways, one of his videos is a very good Christian guy, and I believe he's with the Lord. And so before he passed away, one of the things that he talked about was the Darrow. The Darrow are like a demonic race of like trolls or goblins, I don't know what you would call them, that live within the earth. They're inner earth creatures. And he claims to have seen one when he was a young boy or a young man. And the way that he described the creatures, it would be very ancient. It would be a very ancient creature because our noses and our ears continue to grow. Okay, like the whole time. Yeah, so when you're 80 years old, your nose kind of is drooping. You have bigger ears because your nose and your ears continue to grow. And so when he described this creature that had like long earlobes hanging down and a nose that was hanging down over its mouth, it made me think of an ancient creature, something that was very old. And I know that in the book of Genesis, it talks about our race, the human race, living to be 1,000 years old. Now, if you go into the Vedas, it talks about in the Hindu belief that people lived in the different yugas. In the Dwapara Yuga, they lived to be 1,000 years old, and then, of course, in the Tetra Yuga, which was before the Dwapara Yuga, people lived 10,000 years. And so I believe that at the end of the Dwapara Yuga, which coincides with the book of Genesis, when Noah and the flood, when all that happened, I believe that the people were living, the average lifespan was probably several hundred years. Some people were living to be 1,000. Methuselah, obviously, but I think
he was like 969.
Exactly, and so you take all this information and you go, wow, that really coincides with what they say, and I believe that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. That the world, I believe, now you may not agree with this because a lot of creationists don't. I don't know if you're a creationist, but they don't believe that the world is as old as we think it is. But I'm
young Earth creationist.
Yeah, see, I'm not. But see, here's the thing. If you think about it, in the Hindu belief, in the Buddhist belief, they believe that God has divine years. So one of God's divine years is like 1,000 years to us. See? So when you look at it from that perspective, it's like, okay, when they're talking about a year, what is a year to God? We're like ants. And time for an ant, if you put an ant on this table right now, okay, this table's about 2 feet wide, or, actually 3 feet. This is a very big table. That ant, it's going to take him a while to traverse that. Where I take one step and and it's like a second. For this ant, it's like a good 30-second trip. Do you see how time is so much longer, so much different for us than it would be for the omnipotent creator? Like time is nothing. It's like so.
Oh, I think God exists outside of time.
Outside of time, yeah. But when he built or created the earth, it's very, very possible that it was over long periods of time. For us, what would have been a long period of time for him was days, because I believe one divine year is 360 years. So if you do the math, and I mean, I could get into the whole whatever, it's really impossible for us to fathom, like creation, and I believe that this is another not popular theory, but I believe that dinosaurs existed alongside mankind.
Oh, absolutely.
I fully
I
agree.
question whether there's a few strays are still around.
I believe there are. Just getting reports of pterodactyls like all the time, like down in South Texas in particular. I don't know if there's some sort of portal down there or what's going on, but I get stories from that area quite a bit. It's very common. And I just think that, when we look at things, if you look at things, everything from a very physical standpoint, it's hard to fathom. You cannot just take everything and go, this is it, put this in a box, and that's how it works, because we don't understand. We barely know the ocean. I mean, like, there's parts of the ocean that we just don't even know what's there. We have no idea. And then
Mariana Trench, for a good
Mariana's
example.
Trench, exactly. I mean, it's so hard to fathom, what's in the ocean, and for people to, like that. Well, science has the answers. Science doesn't have the answers. Science is completely. I mean, it's incomplete. There's no way that our small little grasp of the universe and the world around us can explain all the things. I mean, you get people giving reports of seeing apparitions all the time, seeing flying things in the air, humanoid and spacecraft looking things, and you get stories of sea serpents, things that should have been extinct out, thousands, millions of years ago, still being seen. The God bear, okay, that one in particular in Kamchatka and in the taiga region in Russia. I could do a whole show about that. I mean, people see this bear that literally somebody saw one carrying like a brown bear in its mouth, and the brown bear was about 8 feet, 9 feet long. So you get stories of people that see this bear, and the Russians there are just like, yeah, that's the God bear. It's what they call it, because it's such a crazy beast, and it's like the size of people's houses. I mean, but you get people give you a story, and then you kind of file it under a one-off. Okay, what is that? That's weird. The first time I got a story of the God bear was several years ago. I put it away. Then I got another one, and then I was like, well, that one, let me see what I got in my files here. Okay, here it is. I filed it under that. So then the next thing you get another one. And before you know it, you have enough to do, 3 or 4 episodes. I mean, it's crazy. And then every time I drop an episode about a subject, I get 6, 7 reports coming in about that particular subject. I never go into talking to a witness. Anybody who's ever talked to me can tell you this. I don't tell them, hey, you saw a gargoyle, tell me about it. No. And most people aren't calling me and telling me, hey, I saw a pterodactyl. They just said, look, I saw this thing in the air, and they give me the description of it. Sometimes people will tell you, this is what I think it was. And that because they're predisposed, because they heard someone describing it and said, that's what that is, But I don't think it's fair that people have passed judgment either way on this story with the LBL. And now, prior to this story breaking, I knew the bare minimum about the LBL, because that's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is more like, I get stories from people all the time, and I get stories from people in different areas, but there are certain areas that I kind of try to stick to. Texas is my main stomping ground, but I also share this area with big names like Ken Gerhardt, Lyle Blackburn, David Weatherly, and Nick Redfern. Okay, so yeah, all those guys, we all live within hours of each other. So, and I've gotten to know them all pretty good. They're all really nice guys. But you got a lot of big name researchers, and so I share the field with them. But you also, I try not to step on the toes of too many people from other areas. Pennsylvania. I know that Lon does a lot of work up there, and so if something's in that area, I might say, hey, what do you think of this? I'll talk to him. Linda Godfrey and Chad Lewis are up in Wisconsin. I mean, you got, of course, Barton Nunley. He's a good guy, and he's got one of the best books ever in humanoids. That's an awesome book. If anybody,
that's
a great book.
That book right there, I'll tell you what. And another guy who's got a lot of good information about humanoidal encounters, and he's probably done the most comprehensive, is Albert Rosales. I talked to him recently. We're going to be doing some work together, and I'm so backed up trying to, but you got all these different people who've done all this different research. And so I'm just one of those people. I'm nobody special. I just have I'm like you guys, I have a passion for this. but the LBL had been covered so comprehensively and so in depth that I was like, everybody kept asking me, when are you going to talk about the LBL? And I'm like, I'm not, because it's been covered so much. I mean, why would I go into something that's been just so thoroughly, you know, and the NADP and Jody and Nick and those guys, they've done a lot of research on it. And so it's kind of like, it's not really my thing, you know, it's like let them have that, you know, and like the Mothman thing going up in Illinois, Strickler was doing that, you know, it's like, I'm not really, if somebody gives me a story about, you know, I'll tell it, but that's not really my thing, you know. Dark Waters over in Louisiana, he's kind of got that, you know, and so everybody's kind of got their own area. Well, this is kind of like my area, Texas, you know, and Central Texas in particular. But I will talk about stories from all over the world. But that one had just been done so much. But when this story came out and you guys had him on the show and released it, and then it sparked my interest, and I thought, you know what, I'm getting so many reports coming in sending me the link to your YouTube video that I felt like I had to do it for my listeners to try to, and so to get to the bottom of it. And so I had to basically go in and take a crash course on the whole story, because I had only heard overviews of it and I didn't really give it a lot of attention, because I didn't want it to affect.
There's a lot of weird stuff goes on down there, I tell you.
There is, absolutely. And I've gotten
we probably, honestly, right now, we probably spend more time in LBL than any other investigator. But it's because we live right next to it. We're not very far from it. You know, we're equal distances from there to the Bell Witch Place and Werewolf Springs. So
we're right in the center of a lot of good areas. So we just kind of got lucky. And
we research a lot of those areas. But yeah, we spend untold hours in the LBL now. But it's just because we're close to it.
No. Did you say Werewolf Springs?
Yeah, have you ever heard of Werewolf Springs in Dixon, Tennessee? Well, we've got a video on it if you ever want to go watch it.
It's got a lush history.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. The name, you know, just that's pretty cool.
That's kind of where we got our start in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I was going to ask that, gentlemen, how did you get into this whole, like, how did you guys fall into this? What?
Well, everybody that knows me knows that I'm from the mountains, East Tennessee, you know, proud Appalachian boy here. Mm-hmm. And my mama, growing up down there in the mountains, they lived on a farm, and something would come by at night, and they'd be walking up the old dirt roads home, and it would follow them just out of the edge of where they could see. If they'd walk, it'd walk. If it'd run, they'd run. Or they'd run, it'd run. And it got more and more pronounced, and would chase them home and try to get in their house. They didn't have, like, locks on the doors, because this was back in the 60s. They'd have to, like, push the refrigerator or the stove up in front of the door to try to keep it out. And as it progressed, they started seeing this thing around the farm, and it would come out at night and steal their hogs. And they wouldn't even shoot it because they was afraid that the guns that they had would just really make it mad and it'd kill all of them. But I grew up hearing about all this, you know, and I grew up around granny witches and different legends and things like that. So I've always been fascinated and had it. And then we were in Werewolf Springs one day, and a train went by, and something went to roaring and howling. And it sounded like an 800 or a 900-pound wolf. Wow. And that's really what excited our passion for it.
So, so you guys growing up in the Appalachian, there was a story that I was going to do. I don't know if you've ever heard of the faith. He was a faith healer.
So I've been took to faith healers when I was a little boy, Josh. Do you know what thrush is?
Yeah. Oh yeah, thrush from the tongue and all that.
Yes, I had thrush really bad, and the doctors couldn't clear it up. So my mama took me to an old granny witch. Some of them are very kind and benevolent and use sort of a white magic, and other ones they could kill you or do anything with black magic. But she took me to this old granny woman, and she blew in my mouth and healed me from thrush when I was a little kid. And there's just a lot of weird things go on. There's a lot of faith healing. My granddaddy, he used to suffer from what they called Bright's disease, and he would hemorrhage out of his nose and out of his eyes, his ears, and his mouth. And, yeah, it was very terrible, and he couldn't read. But there was a verse when he would start bleeding like that a lady across the road would read to him, Ezekiel 16:6, and he would stop hemorrhaging. And it got to where when he would start hemorrhaging, he'd grab his Bible and run down the road to this woman's house, and she'd read it to him, and it would stop it. And he finally, she taught him the verses to where he could end up just going along with it and repeating the Bible himself and save himself when he would start that. So there's a whole lot of faith healers and such around.
That's interesting because one of the faith healer stories I got was from a family that lived up in the Appalachians, but I think it was near West Virginia. I got to go back and look at the area, but the Appalachians run all through there, all the way up into Virginia, West Virginia.
All the way up into New York, even.
Yeah, and so anyway, I believe it was West Virginia. It was either Virginia or West Virginia, but they had told me about a faith healer that had actually encountered, and he had faced down was what would be kind of called like a Baba Yaga. It wasn't called that, but I did a show about one that was an Eastern European. The name of it would be like a
almost like the boogeyman, but a woman.
A woman, yeah, like a hag, yeah. And it was one of these deceased granny witches. And she had come back to life, but she was like a corpse-looking thing. And he faced her down and defeated her. It's kind of like a folk hero. It was almost like a Johnny Appleseed type story. But these guys that gave me the story, they claimed that it was their great uncle. And they gave him a pseudonym, but they told me the story, and they said that he had gone and he had fasted and he had lived in a cave and he had faced down these different entities, and supposedly there was a possession that took place, and he pulled a spirit out of a person, like a shadowy type entity, and that there was a dogman type creature that he had gotten rid of. And that was when we first talked. That was how it started. Was just that the guy gave me the email, and then it just went from there. But I was thinking of putting the stories together and doing a show about it, and it makes for good entertainment,
we heard a story about a granny witch who actually would call up dog men to do her bidding.
Mm-hmm. That's what this thing was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff I'd love to tell you, but I wouldn't dare tell it on the air, family secrets and stuff like that. People get mad if it got out in the public forum.
Yeah. Okay. You got to be careful. And I know that the Appalachian people now, and here's another thing I was going to tell people that are listening. If you don't know this, there are areas in the Appalachians that are extremely poor. So there are people that live in the Appalachians.
Poorest people in the world.
Poorest people, yeah, in the entire country. I mean, people think, there's projects and there's this and that. No, these people in Appalachian, that they are so poor. I used to give to the Christian Appalachian Project. That was one of my charities or whatever. I gave a lot of money to that and the Covenant House, which was for runaway teens, because I felt, I was homeless at one point as a teenager. So it was not something I wanted to ever experience for anybody. So those were two charities. If you're ever looking for charities to donate, folks, Covenant House is one of my favorites, and then the Christian Appalachian Project is a good one.
There ain't an inner city house anywhere that's as poor as a lot of the people in Appalachia.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And some of those people, they live, like they have nothing. They don't have shoes. They're uneducated. And there's areas there that you would drive around and you would think this is a third world country. There's areas here in Austin that look that way too, but that's because they've made it that way. Now, these people are there, at best, absolutely. And so
these people are uneducated. They're not stupid people.
No, they're not stupid.
Because they can do things other people can't do.
Yeah. Well, they can run trot line and they can hunt.
They can heal themselves out of the hills and the hollers.
Mm-hmm.
They really have a rich culture all their own.
Their own way of dancing, their own liquor, their own way of courting. They're just amazing people.
Yeah, it reminds me of that song by what's his name, Hank Williams Jr. "Country Boy Can't Survive."
Yes, sir.
I listened to that song the other day, and my wife's like, "Well, what happens if this, and that happens?" I said, "Just listen to that song." For the first 15 years of my life, I spent out in the country, and I learned a lot of things about a lot of things that people nowadays would not have any clue. You know,
I've made a point of raising my kids so if any apocalyptic situation happened, I could drop them anywhere in the world with a backpack, and they'd flourish.
You have to know them things. Knowing how to hunt and fish, and you know, those are important things. Some people, I mean, like they don't even know how to build a fire. I mean, like I've seen people just, you know, I stayed out of the woods for a long time. I've been recent in the last few years going back and doing, and I've actually been back and forth in the woods a lot more than I was. But I stayed out of the woods for a long time. But I didn't forget the skills that I was taught for the first 15 years of my life because I spent those years in the woods. And I've only went back 2 or 3 times because after what I saw, which ironically was in town, but getting most of the reports you get they are out in the sticks, and so it kind of scared me, you know, for a while to stay out of those areas. But surviving, not a problem.
What did you see, Josh? You ain't got to give a lot of details. Bigfoot, dogman, something else?
It was a dog man, I guess. I don't really call it a dog man because it doesn't really seem. I mean, it didn't look like a dog to me. It looked like a giant wolf, and it was on 2 legs, and it had the upper body of a man. I saw it in my hometown, Taylor, Texas. I talked about it on episode 55 of Dogman Encounters with Vic Cundiff. And
I've probably listened to that and forgot.
Yeah, I mean it was so long that episode was so long ago. It was like 2015 or something. But kind of like how Roger had, it kind of touched home to me when you said that he thought, well, now it's time to tell my story because you ain't getting any younger. That's kind of how I was when I started talking about the Dogman thing. I had spent all these years researching it and collecting data and stories. And I started talking to my nephews and my brother, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, and they're like, why don't you write a book? And I'm like, well, nobody really knows who I am. I'm just going to write a book, But I did a lot of investigating, talking to multiple people who had encounters, and not just in the area where I'm from, but all over Texas, and eventually, I had so many stories that when I first went on and I told my story on Vic's show, I told him, I said, I've collected a lot of stories. I don't know that I can get these people to come on and talk about it. A lot of them are country folk and they don't really care to go and be on the radio and all that. But I said, I've written them down in journals, and I did. I had written them all down. And so I told him about it, and he's like, you should come back and tell those stories. And so I did. And then, of course, after I started telling those stories, then every time I was on his show, I would get like a rush of more stories that people would tell me because they wanted me to tell their story. And then it just kind of went from there. And, of course, I collected not just Dogman stories, but paranormal stories over the years. I've collected a ton of them. And unfortunately, I lost some of my journals to a vindictive ex that burned them.
Oh, that's
and
terrible.
So I lost. Yeah, she was throwing them in the fire, and her friend, who was cool, she went outside and called me and said, "Hey, she's over here throwing your stuff in the fireplace." And so I was like, I showed up, and proceeded to beat the crap out. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't touch her, folks. I'm joking. No, I was like, what are you doing? So immediately I called the police, and her friend had already called them because she had literally broken into my house and was destroying my stuff. And she knew that was something that I cared a lot about, so she thought, you know what, I'm just going to burn it. And I think it was because she thought that I had written stuff about her in the journals. And I was like, those are not even, I was like, those I have locked away somewhere. Okay. I told her, I was like, no, that's not about you. Those are not my diaries. Those are paranormal stories that I have collected. And you just burned like a third of them, And so other than the ones I'd committed to memory, those are lost, unfortunately. But I had a OCD real bad. And I would do things in 3s and 4s. And I don't know if anybody knows how bad OCD can be. I have a tick, my eyes, I blink, and I do things that are OCD. But when someone would give me a story, I would pull out my journal and start writing in it. And sometimes people would look at me like, what is wrong with this guy? But I had to get every word, I had to write it, And over time, I worked through a lot of my OCD. People, as they get older, a lot of times they can grow out of it and they start to be less OCD. But I was very OCD, and I had it all alphabetized. I had it all and I had all these stories that I'd collected from people. And when I talked to Vic Cundiff about it, I was like, I would like to do a show. And I said, but it's not just about Dogman. I have a story upon story of the paranormal, different things like weird stuff like Fortean, Fortean being, like the study of unusual, unknown things, strange things. And that was kind of my thing, And so he said, yeah, you should start a podcast and talk about that stuff, I think he kind of wanted to steer me in the direction away from Dogman too, just because I think he wanted me to continue to go to his show and give him my Dogman stuff and then do my show about whatever. But
paranormal.
Yeah, paranormal and whatever, but it all kind of runs together for me. So I just started, doing my own thing. And my last episode with Vic was episode 300. I probably won't be going back on to his show. But because I have my own thing now, and it just, I'm all focused on trying to do my show and get it out there. But yeah, when you have collected hundreds and hundreds of accounts from people of all these weird things, it's so hard for me to sit there and talk to someone who doesn't believe or doesn't get it. And if they laugh, I mean, I get really upset because it's like, you have no idea. Like, I've had people sit across the table from me and cry. I've had them look me in my eye. I've had a police officer sit there and tell me that he saw this Dogman type creature, and it made him cry and drop his gun. I mean, these guys. I mean, they pour their heart out to you and tell you their story, and then when somebody like trivializes it and laughs at it or tries to pick it apart and make me out to be a lunatic, it really aggravates me because. I've put a lot of my blood, sweat, and tears into these subjects too, and so.
From what I understand, you do pretty good.
Well, I try. I mean, I don't. I've been. I think that when you start to get attacked, like I've been attacked a lot in the last year or so, and it's just been nonstop with certain people, and they're.
And we apologize for anything we brought on you unnecessarily.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. You guys didn't do anything. Jody didn't do it. Roger didn't do it. I've been getting attacked and you guys are going to get it too. I mean, if you I notice you guys have 6,500 subscribers, and the bigger you get, the more people are going to attack you because in this industry or whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of jealousy. But I'm like you. Like, I started this out as a hobby. And my wife has coined the term jobby because she's like, oh, you're going to your jobby. So when I come to the office or I go to the studio, I have to sit here and talk to witnesses, and it can take up hours of my day just talking to witnesses and getting their stories. But it has become a job. It's like a second job. I got a 1099 from Google, and I was like, my nephew handed it to me. I'm like, what is this? And he's like, that was from the ads. And I was like, oh.
Wow.
It wasn't like a huge amount of money. I still spent a couple grand over what I made, but the bottom line is we are now making money from it. It's not a lot of money, and it's still kind of like a snake eating its own tail, whatever type thing, however you say.
Ouroboros.
Yeah. But it's starting to become, we're getting bigger, and what I'm going to do is just keep putting the money back into it because I have a thriving security business. That's what I do, and I make money doing that. I don't need to do this. This is really still just kind of a hobby that's become very time consuming and tedious, and so I just keep putting the money back into it, and I want to get to where I can eventually put out more material, more shows, and have more time dedicated to it, to maybe putting out 2 or 3 a week, just because I have so much material. It's hard to catch up, and I'm having a hard time with just 1 or 2 episodes a week, getting all the information out there that I would like to get out there, because there's a whole lot of it, and it's hard, So I told my wife, I was like, one of my fears actually is that before I pass, that I'm not able to pump out all the material, that I want to get it out there. And so at least if it's out there, It's there for posterity. It's it'll be there. People can go back and look at it. It's a shame what happened with Brenton. That all of the good stories and episodes and things and all his work has now been taken down. That's unfortunate. I don't want that to happen with me and my material, but you guys are on your way. I mean, you doing what you did and bringing Roger on and talking to him and giving him a platform. I had some people that I argued with about that recently. Okay, one in particular was very obnoxious, and he said it was the worst thing these people could have done. That they put a fictional liar type person. I can't remember the exact words. They used a bunch of bad words, and so these guys, they claim to be Christian, but then they put that guy on there. And I asked the guy this, and I said, let me ask you a question. I said, if I put a guy on my show, okay, and I tell you that I believe that he's telling the truth, but you can make up your own mind and you tell us what you think, and you lay it out there, you let the guy tell his story, okay, and then for 3-4 weeks you take a ton of heat over that, okay, because all you did was allow that person a platform to tell their story. You didn't say that it was the gospel truth. You didn't say this was the
No, I mean, it's no different than anything Vic does. Vic has people come on and tell some things that sound outlandish. Maybe they're true, maybe they're not. Actually, everybody does.
And it's, but I mean, and it is. There's a lot of it that's not that actually, folks. And I'll just come out and say it right now. This is controversial too, but that's one of the reasons why I'm not going to be going back on Vic's show. He promotes a particular person who I don't agree with. I think that a lot of his stuff is not correct, and I think it's just getting people's stories, okay, but then misrepresenting them and telling them incorrectly. And then when you hear it happen over and over again, people keep telling you this person's not doing it justice. That's my story. That's where I parted ways with that whole situation. I don't have anything ill will against Vic Cundiff as a person. I like Vic. I think that he is going through a period right now where he's trying to find legitimate guests and whatever. And for whatever reason, he keeps putting this other person on there to fill in the gaps. But I think it's wrong. I don't agree with it. And so for my, I don't know how you would say it, for my own peace of mind, I just was like, I'm not going to go back and I'm going to do my own thing. And I'm very picky. I'm asked to go on a lot of different shows, and I'm very picky about going on other people's programs because I was on one show, the BDRP, and then subsequently, that show went down because the host got in some trouble, and people, look at you like, oh, you were friends with that guy and he got in trouble, blah, 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 and so the people you associate with will rub off on you, and it'll be you that they look at and say, okay, this guy, you associate with him, but it's not your fault, Johnny and Elijah, if Roger say that somehow it's proven that he's incorrect. That still doesn't reflect on you. All you did was
because we told everybody we don't know if he's telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
We have no idea. We've investigated as much as we can. I had somebody telling me, "You guys are you've ruined your reputation," and I'm like, "Okay, me and Dead Owls, we don't give a hoot. This is my hobby. If everybody unsubscribe to me, I'm still going to do the same thing I am because I love cryptids. I'm still going to put out videos. Mm-hmm. Maybe some wandering idiot will wander by and enjoy what we did.
Well, you guys didn't do anything wrong. I can vouch for that. I can tell you, folks, I've talked to these gentlemen, and I believe in my heart. I believe that you did not do anything wrong. I don't believe Jody did anything wrong. I think that Jody gets excited. And he's very passionate.
Jody gets very excited. He needs to calm down because he's going to give himself a heart attack.
And he's got some health issues. I mean, you got to pray for Jody. I mean, Jody's not a bad guy. Me and Jody get along very well. And I've had multiple conversations with him. And you guys are very upstanding guys. And I would hope that everybody would give everybody a fair shake in this deal. And I definitely am, and I'm open-minded, and I believe that now, one of the things you said, Johnny, and I agree with this 1,000%, and I'm going to say this for everybody out there listening, whether Roger, is telling the truth or not, I believe that he believes he's telling the truth. Okay.
Absolutely. You know, speaking of Roger, real quick. Now I don't remember this. This might be new information to some of your listeners. When I was interviewing Roger, and he was talking about the actual attack. If you want me to go into this,
Go ahead.
I don't remember if when I interviewed him live, if he said this. He said the creatures seemed very confused.
Yeah, I don't think he mentioned that on the show.
Yeah.
Wow.
Disoriented.
You disoriented. That was it. Word. Said they seemed disoriented.
What did he mean by that? Do you?
I don't know.
We've never been quite sure, actually.
But I thought it was an interesting term that he used, that they seemed disoriented.
I heard a story one time, and I tell you right now, I don't listen to a lot of other channels, but I was listening to a show, and my wife listens to channels sometimes, and sometimes it drives me nuts because they're listening to people and they're going like, what is this? But there was this guy that was talking, and I'll never forget this. We were headed to Port Aransas down to the beach, and I love to go down there. I got a friend who owns a nightclub down there, and we go down there, and they have like all these cabanas or whatever, and so it's a pretty cool place, and I like to go to get away. It's very peaceful. And so we were headed down there to the beach, and I just remember it was a long drive, and my wife put on we were tired of listening to music, so she put on some paranormal podcast thing, and I was kind of tuning it out. I worked in a nightclub for years, and I'm able to tune out bad music, and just, I don't even hear it. Like, I literally do not hear it. And so I was tuning it out and just kind of my own thoughts, and but then I caught a part of what this guy was saying, and one of the things he was saying was that there was, and I've looked and tried to find this guy, and my wife can't remember which channel it was. So if anybody out there remembers this story, because it's not one that was given to me, it was one that we heard. There was a dog man that was attacking a guy that lived in a trailer, and this thing would stop in the middle of what it was doing and convulse and then bounce up and down on the ground and then move around, and it was almost like it was being controlled. And then he observed it, and he claimed that it almost made him feel sorry for it, because it looked like it was fighting against whatever, and then it would start doing what it was doing, like it was back to being normal again. Then it would start bouncing around and turning around in circles and flipping around. And this guy lived way out in the middle of nowhere, and he's an older gentleman. So if anybody's heard that story, it always stuck with me, and I was thinking, what is that? Now, the guy who did the show, he was claiming that his theory was that it was some sort of extraterrestrial, that they were trying to control this dog man to kill that guy, but it wasn't. It was fighting the control. That to me, that could be, I don't know, but it seemed more likely that it was being used by some sort of like dark element, like black magic or something, if you will. And when you guys, when the whole Amish thing came out, I thought that is very interesting, because of a lot of the people don't really know that there is a subsect of the Amish that do practice black magic. And so whenever these things showed up and they attacked, then he was hiding and they didn't go after him. Well, the targets were specific to that family. That's very possible. And for him to say that, now you just said that speaks volumes about this whole case, because now that almost puts it in another category, because you just said that they seemed like they were disoriented. Because they probably
because I remember when he said that I literally wrote that down in my notes, that they seemed disoriented.
Mm-hmm. That's very odd. That is that, and to me, that's big. That's big. I would love to talk to Roger, and maybe we can set something up. You guys could coordinate it to maybe he could come on and tell me his side of it from his own words. And I was glad to have you guys on. So that
we probably have to be careful, because there is still a television network interested in Roger. I know some of you've heard that the network's not interested in him anymore, but it actually is. I was on a call with him and the network last Monday, so they are definitely still interested in him. And I don't know how much interest I have in doing anything, because until my wife's better, I don't know that I want to be a part of anything.
Yeah. That's understandable.
But they are still interested in him, so I don't know how much he could say. I don't think they've signed any actual papers yet, or got that far in the negotiations. But I don't guess he's under a gag order in any way.
Definitely nothing legal.
Yeah, nothing legal.
Well, it shouldn't.
So I don't know how much he could talk, but I think I would love for you guys to talk.
It shouldn't affect him too much. They picked up a show of ours, the Church of the Forgotten, and I had to go and sit there, and it was not comfortable at all. I can tell you that. It was like 2 or 3 hours, and something weird and paranormal actually happened during the filming of that. And a buddy of mine that works for the Travel Channel, I've given him witnesses and stuff too for their shows. I've let them talk to my witnesses and said, "Hey, would you guys like to come on?" And some of them said no, some of them said yeah. I mean, so they're willing to come on and talk about it. And so I gave them some witnesses, but I did a spot for them, and it shouldn't affect him too much. As long as the story builds a head of steam, it might be actually a good thing, because that'll keep people's interest in it, going into possibly being on TV. Corley, thank you for your donation. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Corley Cantor. But it's just one of those things where, I mean, it's up to him. If he feels like it could possibly hurt what he's trying to do, then that's understandable. But I think it would help, and it could only get more exposure and put it out there, But another thing I wanted to ask you guys, when you've been in contact with him, obviously, like whenever this whole thing broke, okay, and you guys spoke with him, you said you had multiple conversations with him, right, before he came on your show?
We talked to him for a couple of months.
Couple of months, right? And now,
and the reason that he wanted to do something with us, and then that network called me. Somebody else in the industry had given them my name, because when I first found out about Roger, I wasn't sure how to go about presenting this to the public, and I started calling different people, to ask them, how should I do this? The Bible says there's wisdom in a multitude of counsels, so I started going to different people, and one of those individuals gave my phone number and information about Roger to the network, and they called me, and that's how they found out about Roger. And they've been wanting him, kind of trying since February to lock him in, and I finally got him to talk to him. And then there was something come up, and he felt like that they wasn't being honest with him, and he had made the decision to not go with them, and asked me to go ahead and put his story out there, basically, because it was coming up on the anniversary of when the event happened, and it just seemed like time. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And just like almost 2 days, literally, after we put his story on there, the network called again, and to let us know they hadn't forgot about us, and or by us, I mean Roger, and to see if he was still interested. And I told him, well, no, I don't think he is, because he thought that you guys had done this. And they said, no, I swear it wasn't us. We had no part of doing that. And let Roger know, and I let him know, and he agreed to work with them, so I put them back in contact together.
And so you guys, when you finally decided to go ahead and do the show, you had already talked to him multiple times, and you had no reason to think that there was a deception going on at all.
I couldn't find any, and still, if I hear something that don't sound right, I'll go, Roger, I thought you said this, and he'll say, no, I said this, and I'll go back and look at my notes, and usually I'm wrong. I know one thing that Jody had said on your show the other day that was wrong, and I think Jody just misheard it, was he said that Roger said that he caught a ride and they took him to Hopkinsville, which was 15 minutes away.
Mhm.
Well, that wasn't actually said. Roger said that he was taken to a farm 15 minutes away. Where Hopkinsville come in was where we was trying to figure out where the airport was, and he said it was about 45 minutes away. And from the time discrepancy, I suggested to him, because he thought it might have began with an H, I suggested to him that it might have been Hopkinsville, because that would be about the right time difference. See, Roger never said that definitely. He said that kind of sounds right, but he never said that he went to Hopkinsville. He don't know. I was just trying to help him figure out where it might have been, and I suggested it could have been Hopkinsville, but he never said Hopkinsville as far as a definite.
So, yeah, and so some of the things that have been brought to light by Jody and multiple other people who contacted me. The list is too long to even go into, but they picked apart the story, and to me, it seems like there are certain people who are going to believe it no matter what, and there are certain people who are going to disbelieve it no matter what, and there's really nothing. But you still have all these people in between who are just kind of reserving judgment, you know. I included. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to go.
What is that old statement that people always say? An opinion changed against its will is of the same opinion still.
Yeah. But I mean, so it seems like to me, like you guys, you've gone out on a limb, kind of, I guess, you know, and said that, you know, that you do believe that there wasn't any deception on his part in the way that he believes his story. And
We've not been able to find any. That's not to say, again, there's some masterful liars out there, you know, but we've not found deception in this man yet. That's not to say that we won't stumble upon it tomorrow, but so far we have not. Well, he has, everything he's told us that we can look into has checked out.
And, you know, if we happen to find out that he is a liar, we'll let everybody know.
Yeah.
And that's all you can do.
We owe it to everybody, you know. When you know, when we found out, according to Roger, that our video was wrong that we had put out, you know, we give him time to address it, you know, to where, you know, if we were wrong, then and Roger's story is true, then we made up for it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll never intentionally deceive everybody.
Yeah.
No.
And I believe that. I wouldn't have you on the show if I thought you were trying to. And it doesn't seem like you really have an agenda either, other than just putting out material, you know, for people to hear and listen to and whatever. And here's the thing I wanted to ask you guys while I have you on the show. Your main opinion, okay, of this area of the LBL, because obviously there's more going on than just Dogman. The actual killings that took place, okay, if it is to be believed. Now, we all know Jan Thompson. You know, what is your opinion on that? Like, what do you first of all, let's start with her. What do you think about her and her story?
Well, that's hard to say. You know, we believed it hook, line, and sinker until we talked to Roger, and now there's another version, so we're like, is it possible the truth lies somewhere between the two stories? You know, Roger maintains there was absolutely no police presence there for at least 2 days. Does that mean there was never any police presence there? Maybe not, you know. I don't think that on federal land local police come out and investigate. I don't know that, but I think that's more of a federal thing.
So what do you think? Do you think that Jan Thompson, who supposedly has not been responding, has not tried to defend herself, do you think that there's an agenda behind that? I mean, do you think that there's a reason behind that? Or, I mean, like, what is your opinion on that?
I'm not sure if she would have an agenda because I believe the story somewhere is based in fact.
You know, somebody may have actually told her that story. You know, she may have reported what she genuinely heard. You know, what if but, you know, something's broke down somewhere, because Roger maintains that the little girl was not in the tree, and the Dan story, and everybody says that it was in the tree. But if you listen to, there's probably 30 different versions of that story out there, and no two agree on their details.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I stayed away from it, because everybody kept pushing me, and I was just like, dude, there's so many. When there's a story that's so loaded like that, it's hard to go out and talk about it, because everybody's going to disagree, and
It seems clear something happened,
yeah.
but I don't think anybody agrees on what.
I don't know if you've heard this, Josh, but as of recently, the area where that supposedly took place, people are getting ticketed going in there now.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Why would that be?
You can walk in there, but if they catch you with your vehicle in there, they've started writing hefty tickets.
That's weird. Why would that be? What would their reasoning be other than, I know why it could be, but like, why? What is their official reasoning? Do you know?
No, they just been writing tickets. I belong to an LBL abandoned places group on Facebook, and several people in that group have wandered in there and got tickets.
Wow, that's weird. I wonder what they would be, what the agenda there is. That's interesting. And you guys go out to that area like quite often, right?
We were out there probably every weekend before my wife got sick.
Well, we've spent nights there.
Yeah.
Anything weird ever happen?
We've had a few weird things there. One of our videos, if you go watch it, it was we call it Dark Hollow. We fooled around and we had some experiences there. Elijah and April kept swearing that they heard the howling and stuff all.
Just some kind of noise.
Yeah, off in the distance. And I was like, well, we're down here in this scary place. You're imagining it. It's not real. You're just imagining it. And we had our tent set up, and we were just enjoying the evening, seeing if we could hear anything. And we were right beside a little creek, and all these cottonmouth snakes started coming out around sunset. And I think they was trying to feed on the minnows and the frogs that was around. Mm-hmm. Well, my wife has no problem with Bigfoot or Dogman, but snakes she's not real happy with, and she largely informed me we was going home. And Elijah didn't want to go home, so I told him, here's what we'll do. We'll pack up the camp. We'll keep our fires going, our torches and stuff, and our chairs out. We'll just sit out and enjoy the night, and we'll go home, in 3 or 4 hours, and, we'll just see what happens. And we packed up the car, and while I was packing up, I seen in the light this orange eye shine watching us from across the river, or across the creek. So I'm watching this eye shine, it's watching me, and we walk across there, and it's bobbing up and down, and me and Elijah go over and literally have to walk past a big cottonmouth laying in the roadway, coiled up, to get past it to see what this eye shine is, and it turns out to be a raccoon. And as we're watching this raccoon, Elijah's like, do you see that blue eye shine over there? And I'm like, what blue eye shine? I said, are you talking about that real dark spot in the woods? And no sooner than I said that, something hit this tree and growled real loud, or grunted or something.
It's some real deep sound.
Yeah. So I grabbed we had a trail cam in a tree there, so I grabbed it, and we walked back past the snake onto our other side where our tent had been. And we're sitting there listening, and I told him, I said, hey, you got that dog whistle in your pocket, because down in the southern part of LBL, you get a lot of Bigfoot activity. I've had real good responses with Bigfoot activity using a dog whistle. So I had him blow the dog whistle. Nothing happened. We waited a little while, and I said, why don't you adjust that thing and blow it again? And he adjusted it, and he blew it, and it was a lot more high-pitched. And 40 seconds later, it sounded like a T-Rex tearing through the woods, breaking limbs and trees, and stopped just at the edge of the wood line. And I think the only reason it didn't come out, whatever it was was because we had all these fiery torches around us.
Hmm.
And
You think it was a Sasquatch?
no, I think it was a dog man.
Oh, a dogman. Okay.
Yes, 'cause we chose this particular location because there had been a dogman sighting down there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was exactly where the bow hunter's body had been found.
Because I know that supposedly in the north is where the dogmen are, in the south is where
Yes,
the
and thank you
Bigfoot
for
are.
saying supposedly.
Yeah.
Most everybody says supposedly.
Yeah. But I mean that does kind of make sense because we have an area here in Texas called the Devil's Backbone, and I've done a lot of research in that area. And the western side tends to be more dogman, and the eastern side seems to be more Bigfoot.
Almost everywhere I've been, and it's always dogman in the north and Bigfoot in the south.
Yeah.
The only place we've seen that's kind of an exception to that is around that Werewolf Springs area.
Where I found dogman and Bigfoot tracks.
That's crazy. Yeah, and I had a story or two out of the LBL, but one of them was just it wasn't very believable. So I didn't even bother. I didn't give it much, And when I mentioned that not too long ago, I guess that particular person listens, and so had to get an earful from them about an email attacking me for being such a jerk because I didn't believe their story. Well, the story got a little carried away, and if I'm wrong, then I apologize. But it sounded very much like these devil monkey type creatures, and when I went back, I started kind of dissecting it. I thought, well, it could be because these creatures, they attack like in a pack, and they were tall and thin and kind of rangy looking. Not the
kind of like the picture Roger had shown.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, and I kind of thought about that too, and I thought, well, this could be. I mean, what it was. I mean, to me though, those are devil monkeys because if you go, folks, if you go and listen to the show, go back and listen to my episode about the devil monkeys. We're going to touch again on it. Me and Ryan Tremblay are gonna do a show. We're going to touch about that again, probably on either his podcast if he can get his equipment correct. It's the second podcast I do. I was doing it on Sundays, but we started just moving the show, doing the episodes on my show. But we're going to talk about that. But yeah, these creatures, it's crazy because like they're highly aggressive too. There was a couple in California that had got a flat tire and they pulled over and they were trying to get it fixed or whatever, or it was either they had a flat tire or they were waiting for someone to come and help them. But these creatures came out of the darkness and was running toward them, and they resembled almost like a cross between a dog, cat, and a primate. That's the only way people could describe them. And they ran up and started attacking their vehicle, and they're very aggressive. I know if anybody's heard of the Napa Valley, the creatures, the rebobs. Look up rebobs Napa Valley, and it'll tell you. I mean, they're a type of like monkey type dogman. And I told one story out of Mason County on Vic Cundiff's show that was these young guys were out and they were shooting fireworks off and they were shooting Roman candles and doing whatever, but they were older teenagers, but they'd been drinking too. I think the oldest one was like maybe in his early 20s. The youngest one was like 16. And so it was a group of guys and they were out running around in their trucks and they shot at something that was standing or squatting down on the tree line, and it stood up and that one and another one began to chase. They're almost always more than one. You rarely hear about just one of them. And when they chase them down this dirt road, this gravel road, they very much resemble, to me, like a Dinopithecus. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like a giant prehistoric baboon. And it had the snout. It had all the characteristics of this prehistoric baboon, except the tail was a little different. Like the tail wasn't kind of jiving with that. And so but it did look like a primate mixed with like a canine. And if you look at a baboon, it has a snout. It has very large teeth. It looks like that. So it makes you wonder if this could be our culprit. What if what killed these people in the LBL is a Dinopithecus or a descendant of a Dinopithecus that adapted to live in that area? That happens. Adaptation. Animals will move to a different area, and then over time they adapt to their survival to that surrounding and whatever, and change. That could be what we're dealing with. That could be what the kids in Mason County saw. That could be what happened to the people in Kentucky or in California. I mean, I talk about it on the Devil Monkeys episode, and somebody told me, well, that's a silly name for it. I was like, well, what would you call them? Because it's like demon monkeys, evil monkeys, because they're not nice monkeys. I mean, we could just call them unkind monkeys who do not subscribe to Christianity monkeys. I don't know. But they're very bad things, It's like, I mean, they're very devilish in their demeanor and what they do, and they attack in packs, and they're highly aggressive, and they don't fit the bill or description of any sort of known primate that we know of. They could be an unknown primate species. I mean, the gorilla wasn't discovered until, I mean, it's like everybody was getting reports of these lowland mountain gorillas and thinking, what is that? That's some craziness. That's weird. Some giant man-like creature, with black fur and beats its chest and chases people. And then eventually we figured out that, it was real. Could be the same thing with this. I mean, and maybe this guy did see that, and maybe what he saw were these devil monkeys, or I don't know. I mean, what could they possibly be? But that kind of makes me wonder. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now Roger said the picture that he showed that he found on the internet and said was as close as anything. He said it's not exact, but it's as close as anything he's ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to address this real quick. Someone says here, Jody never said anything against Elijah and Johnny that I recall. No, he didn't.
No, we haven't heard that, and you're not going to hear us badmouth Jody either.
You'll never hear us talk bad about Jody.
Yeah, and it
Or
says
Roger,
if Jody
either one of
discovered
them,
Roger, he wouldn't be nearly so skeptical. Jealousy is a funny thing. Now, somebody's saying that Jody's doing it out of jealousy. I don't think Jody's doing it out of jealousy. I think Jody put 30 years of his time and effort into this. And, if Roger is telling the truth, he comes out and it changes everything. Jody has to try to get to the bottom of it because he has been researching it for a long time. If Roger's not telling the truth, then that muddies the water further, and it causes problems for everybody, in the field. And then somebody mentioned earlier in the comment section that and Roger, don't take this the wrong way. This is somebody that said, what if Roger is not telling the truth on purpose? So then when it comes out, it discredits everybody. There's all kinds of possibilities.
We've heard that theory.
Yeah.
It's our hope that when the network and Roger start working together, they have the resources. They can look up everything. When they have the family's last name, the maiden name, the make and model of the vehicles they had, then they should be able to somebody find some records.
And they even told us they have ground penetrating radars.
Yeah, we were even told that there's ground penetrating radar that they have access to that could be taken out there to see if anything could be found.
So it's really just better all around that they do work alongside him.
A lot of people are mad at us. They're like, you done the work with Roger. You deserve all the credit. Well, don't the truth deserve the credit? Whatever the truth is, shouldn't that come out and be, rather it's somebody's, stroked ego, I would rather the truth come out than to make us a little popular or something.
Well, and here's the thing too. If this story is to be believed, then it absolutely needs to have the attention, and it needs to be told, and but it also needs to be thoroughly investigated.
Yes, and people have the right to do that. And Josh, I would so sincerely encourage people to not just regurgitate the thing they've heard. don't be like this person who just believes me or believes Jody or believes this guy over here or believes the guy down the street. Do your own research. When I'm preaching, when I'm in the pulpit, I'll tell people, don't believe me. Go to your Bible, check it out, see if I'm telling the truth. I'm fallible. I'm a man. I could even be lying to you. Do your own research. Look these things up.
Yeah. And that's admirable. But I think that with this situation here, like everybody getting so worked up and so hot, it is because of the whole mystique that surrounds this case, and everybody who's been involved in researching it, and everybody who's been a skeptic of it, and everybody who's been a proponent of it, everybody who's been. It just seems like it's one of those things where it's a galvanizing subject, and so many people are going to be pushing on one side or the other. But I think that you guys did a very good job of presenting the evidence, talking. You prefaced it with, "Look, this isn't our story. This is his story." And I think that you did a good. I think you really did a good job on presenting. And Jody, he wasn't against you guys either. So there's no real malice between you and Mr. Cook. It's just.
Oh, I certainly hope not.
I do know though that there is a rift between Jody and Roger, obviously, but there's also people that are stoking the flames of that too that I've seen.
Yes, on both sides, making it worse. Now, them two. I think Roger's more upset that he thinks that Jody's accusing him of being complicit in a murder, and I don't know what Jody's intention is. I think sometimes we insert suspicion into things that maybe aren't meant to be understood as a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then again, you never know.
And I was asked what my agenda was, okay, by a particular listener, and I was like, "What agenda? I have no agenda in this. My only agenda is it's interesting, and I'd like to get to the bottom of it, and I'd like my listeners to be able to hear from you guys what your take on it is, and
maybe stop aggravating you about it."
Yeah. And I told everybody, I was like, I have no agenda. I don't have a dog in this fight, as you say. All I want to know is the truth. I mean, like what and it's a very fascinating subject. It fascinates me that there could be possibly somebody. Here's the thing I'm going to tell people. Everybody wants to believe that they really want to believe. But you can't be so quick that you jump in there and you just believe anything that comes down the pipe, because who knows what could happen. I mean, people that do that, I mean, you're going to be disappointed when it comes out that it's not, legit or whatever. And then you're angry, then you become disillusioned. And finally you have to accept that it's not real or whatever. But then there's people that are so hardcore skeptics. It's like, why are you even bothering with this? Why are you even involved in any shape or form? Just go on with your life, because no matter what happens, you could take a specimen of an animal and put it right in front of them, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's fake," So it doesn't matter.
Oh, absolutely.
So I mean, there's nothing you can do with people like that. But I just want everybody to understand that I've spoken to Jody before and then during the interview, and then after I've spoken to him, talked to him a little bit today earlier. Jody has no ill will against you guys from the Cryptid Studies Institute. No,
man, I certainly hope not, because we don't harbor any toward him.
None toward him either. But I think that Roger will eventually, like you said, his story is going to stand or fall on its own, on its own merits, and I believe that he's going to have to eventually at some point probably talk face to face and to get people to believe it, because somebody mentioned on here earlier, like body language plays a big part. And so when you question him and talk to him in person, which I'm sure they're going to do if he goes with the Travel Channel, I know a lot of the guys over there, they're probably going to question him, and he's going to have to sit and talk and whatever. And I mean, I think the truth will come out one way or the other. I certainly hope, this is my hope, that it's true. I hope that it's true because not because I don't know anything about Roger, and not because you guys presented it and like you guys or anything like that, or I want to go against Jody, which I do not. I think I'm just like everybody else. I would like for this to the truth to be finally revealed, that we can say, hey, and put this to rest, and this is actually what happened. That would be great.
You know, a similar situation is cooking right now with a Sasquatch deal, right?
Yeah.
You've seen the Hulu series Sasquatch that come out?
Yeah, I've been hearing about it, but I haven't seen it. But I practically know it because of all the
It's going to be the LBL of the California Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's another one too. And it's like you get all these stories, and it would be awesome to be able to put a bow on them and say, hey, this is awesome, this is real. But I actually applaud Jody and the NADP, him and Nick Valente. Nick and them both did a lot of research on this thing, and I do applaud their efforts to try to get to the bottom of it. Things got out of hand, and like I said, it wasn't so much as just Jody and Roger, but people stoking the flames around it, and then accusing me, and then it says here, somebody says, I thought he was a lawyer. I don't know who you're talking about, but I was going to say, I had somebody tell me, well, I got a lawyer, and this guy's going to be proven correct, and you and Jody are going to go down. And I'm all like, what did I do? Like, what? Why am I going down? Like, what did I do? All I did was, put Jody on, and I had every intention of giving you guys your side of it. You reached out to me, and I was more than happy to bring you on and let you tell your side of it. That was absolutely what I was hoping, that we could all, hash it out, and everybody gets a fair shake and gets to say their part. That's the only thing, that's the only reasonable, fair, and I feel like I'm just a mediator. All I'm doing is mediating. I'm not taking sides in this. I just want everybody to have their fair shake, and I appreciate that you guys and Mr. Cook and hopefully Roger in the future will look at me as a fair mediator in this whole thing, to try to.
You've been very fair, and we want people to understand that we're not defending Roger, but when people, the points of the story where they're trying to call Roger a liar, where they don't actually hold water, it's not fair to the guy right there. If he says something or does something wrong, well, attack him there, but not on something, that
can be proven.
Yeah, otherwise. That can be argued differently.
Somebody just said, TV, the Travel Channel, I will keep in mind that acting coaches coach, just my opinion. When I did my spot for the Travel Channel, which hasn't released yet because of the COVID thing, I was not a pleasant experience.
I'd like to point out, though, I never said Travel Channel.
Yeah, I'm saying somebody said the Travel Channel here. When I did my spot on the Travel Channel, it was very hard for me. I'm not, like good at, but it's not, there were no acting coaches there. Okay. There was nobody teaching me or prompting me or telling me what to do, what to say. They were just asking questions, and they ask you the same question over and over and over and over again, and you have to keep answering it. So they do that. And there were three interviews that lead up to you actually going on and doing the TV spot. So,
oh, wow.
The guys that I dealt with, they actually did a very, they talked to you. And we had something weird happen when I was talking to them during the second interview. I was at Topgolf. Topgolf is a chain where people go and they hit golf balls. I don't know if you know what that is. And they're all over the country.
Oh, yeah, Nashville. Yeah, there's one in Nashville, and they got a little bar beside it. We went and seen the great Jackie Green there.
Yeah,
performing.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah, they're in Nashville, they're in Fort Worth, they're in California and Arizona. We have one over here. We actually live close by to it at the Domain here in Austin. And actually, my nephew is sitting right across from me. You work there sometimes, right, Anthony? And so, anyways, we were at Topgolf, and we were doing the second interview, and I had two guards that night, and they were on the other side of the property because I had just talked to them via radio, and they were literally on the north end of the property, and I was on the south end of the property by the office, and there was no one else around. It's a very large facility, and one of them was out on the green, so they were nowhere around. The other one was on the second floor, all the way to the north. So I was completely alone. The cleaning crew had already left. It was about 3:30, 4 in the morning. And while I was talking to these gentlemen, I heard 3 loud bangs, like, really loud. And it came from, like, I want to say the roof, but then it might have been the wall. It was just kind of came out of nowhere. And we all just kind of stopped, and I was like, what was that? What could that be? Well, when we went to the studio and we did the recording, it is during COVID, so they were actually on a screen on a prompter, and they were, where they talk and ask you questions, and they were in England, and then of course the other guys from Wales, and so we were talking to them via like this prompter, and then they had the people in the studio that were doing the recording, and had the makeup person, whatever. While I was telling the story, we heard 3 bangs again, which was really weird. I mean, like, that was weird. And the makeup girl was like, whoa, what was that? And my buddy Scorpion, who was there with me when we told our story, he was there, and he was like, whoa, that's weird. And like, he was sitting by the door, and he felt like there was something moving in the hallway. So he like moved from where he was sitting. So whatever it was that made the banging in Topgolf, it did the same thing when I was, in the studio. I believe it. I don't know what it was. It was just it was very weird. And those guys that were talking to me, they were like, whoa, that again, And so it was kind of creepy. But yeah, that's a weird thing. I don't know what that was. It was like 3 knocks, I guess. When we were doing the recording, but yeah, they do a pretty thorough job. Like they talk to you over and over and over again, and they'll continue to ask you the questions. So, if he's going to do a spot on Travel Channel, they're going to ask him the same questions over and over again. At least for that particular show, those guys that I dealt with. I don't know exactly what show. If it's going to be just a one spot, or if they're going to do an entire show about it, or what it's going to be. But I know that particular show that they actually do, they're pretty thorough. So,
well, hopefully it all works out, and we find out one way or the other if it's true or if it's not.
Yeah. And you guys, I hope you guys continue to push and do what you do. And just keep growing your channel, man. I mean, you guys got good stuff. We are hopefully going to work together in the future, and that
would be very enjoyable. That'd be awesome.
I want you guys to come on, and we can chop it up and talk about the Bell Witch. That's a very interesting subject. I've always been fascinated by that. A family that was basically harassed by this entity. And to me, it's very important, that particular story, because it proves that these entities can become physical and hurt people physically.
Oh, yes, Josh, there are cryptids tied in with the Bell Witch story.
There is.
This story ties back to the Salem witch trials.
There's plenty of other stories that almost are identical to the Bell Witch.
Yeah, that happened around the same time. Was it Stone Throwing Devil?
The
Lulu
Hurst, the Amherst mystery.
And then there's another case involving witchcraft where, like, a black dog came up through a cabin in the floorboards and had a gun. It was walking around on 2 legs trying to shoot the family, and then it escaped back out the floorboard.
It even fired at them, and I think the bullet got lodged in their potbelly stove.
That's crazy. Yeah, we got to get you guys on, and we got to talk about that. And a lot of the people who've done the stories and research on the Bell Witch, they're not from that area. They just go there, and then they do the research, and then they leave, and they write a story about it, whereas you guys are from that area.
And we're actually distantly related to John Bell.
That's even cooler, because now you guys can actually, because like if you were to go to my hometown, and you just did some research and you blew through and you talked to a couple witnesses and then went off and wrote a book, yeah, you'll get some information, but you're not going to have the information that the locals have, and you're not going to be on top of like what I know. You're not going to be able to go to certain people who aren't going to talk to you because they don't know you. and they're not going to tell you anything. Where I can go and I can talk to these people and I can get 20 stories about these subjects, and I can go into detail about it. And some author that just comes through there that nobody really knows, they're not going to be able to get that, because they're not local. So I thought
and
was
the fact
really
that
cool.
It's a labor of love for us too. We want to make sure it's done. When we're finished with this thing, it's going to be the most comprehensive, probably, video series out there. We've already got an hour of it released, and we still got maybe 4, 5, 6 more hours to go.
Yeah, I'm working on part 2 when I have time.
So when you guys come on, Johnny and Elijah, you guys are going to have to, we can talk about it, and you can tell us, some stuff about it, and then it'll promote you guys, and people can go and get the in depth, when I bring authors on, they'll talk about their books and their stories and whatever, and hour, 2 hours, whatever, and then people can go and they'll get the rest of it from you guys. So it'll be a win-win for both of us. We'll do that. We'll set up a time, and then we'll talk about cryptids and other things and Hopkinsville and all that. That whole area is very fascinating. I haven't done a whole lot of work in that area. I've done some. I do have a couple in the chamber that I'm getting ready to release, though, that do pertain to that area. The Faith Healer, and then the other story about the Crystal Cave witch spiders. I don't know if you guys know anything about that.
Haven't heard that. No.
That sounds awesome, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple people who told me, they were Appalachian people, that told me that the caves hold these white spiders and that they turn people into these rake-type entities. And then I did a bunch of research.
Never heard that.
Never heard that. If you guys come across anything like that, let me know, because I'm trying to put together an episode for that, and I'm waiting.
We're starting to try to look into rakes and black-eyed children, things of that nature.
Well, I can give you some stories on that. David Weatherly is the guy when it comes to the black-eyed kids. He would be the guy to talk to about that. Weatherly actually lives not far from me, right here in the Austin area, around Central Texas. But he's a very good guy to talk to. Like, he is cryptid researcher, but he also studies ghosts and hauntings, and he's real into that. And he's read a lot of the same books I have. Him and Nick Redfern and Ken Gerhardt and Lyle Blackburn, they're all big readers. And when I had time, I used to read all the time. And we all have read multiple issues of Fate magazine, and I've tried to hunt down stories and looked for threads, as I call them, for my stories, and cross-referencing and checking. You have to try to check and make sure that everything's on the up and up. But it's tedious and time-consuming, but it's also fun. It
is. We spend hundreds of hours really researching subjects that we report on and such, and we try to go out to the location so people can get a feel as though they're really there and part of the investigation.
That's awesome. Well, gentlemen, we are at about 10:30 here, my time and your time, and I am going to cut it off so you guys can go and get your beauty rest. And
my wife's gonna clobber me.
Oh man, and I'm sorry for keeping you so long, but it's been very interesting. You guys, thanks for coming on and letting me talk to you guys and question you, and thank you for the answers that you gave, and continue to talk to your buddy, and if he wants to come on, and he can come on and we can talk too.
Sounds good. Now, may I say one last thing?
Absolutely.
To everybody listening out there, please, please, please be nicer to each other. I mean, even if you don't believe what Roger says or what Jody says, you don't have to be bad guys. You don't need to be cussing each other and being a potty mouth.
You're better than that.
Yeah, you're better than that. Get your mind out of the gutter. You can do so much better. Jody is not a bad guy. Give him and the North American Dogman group, give them some credit, be nice.
They've been in this a long time.
Yeah, give Roger a chance to prove himself, This is it's like these shootings you have, somebody goes out and shoots up a place, and the Christian right fundamentalists instantly go, well, that's a Muslim doing that. And then the left instantly goes, well, that's some crazy white Christian fundamentalist. You know, and when it comes out, it's probably some weird kid on psychotropic drugs. You know, wait till all the evidence is in, one way or the other, before you start trying to tear somebody up.
Yeah, I agree. It could be anything. We had a shooting here in Austin recently, and it was a former police detective, unfortunately, who did it. He killed 3 people on Sunday. So pray for their families.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So,
but just be nice to each other.
Yeah, be kind. That would be a big help if everybody could just be kind and be more, you know, appreciative of one another and those in your life. Just as your wife is suffering, you know, my mom is hovering right now, you know, and I'm hoping that she gets better. And, you know, we take for granted the time that we have on this earth, which is very short. And we take for granted the people that we love and care about and that we're close to. And you should pray for them every day and always remember that they're not going to be around forever. And you got to cherish the time you have with them.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Because that's where I'm going to be focusing most of my time right now is on my wife.
Yeah.
So this is probably, until I get her on the road to recovery, the last people's going to hear from me. I'm not going to argue back and forth about whether Roger's right or wrong, you know. There's time for that later after she's taken care of.
Yep, that's right. You got to take care, you get your priorities, and that's it. And I appreciate you coming on and giving me your time that you did, gentlemen. And you guys, you have a good night, and you be safe.
You as well, brother. You have a great evening.
Thank you, Josh. Have a good one, brother.
God bless you guys.
I don't know how to turn that off.
So, folks, you can take it for what it is. I got to take a quick break. Anthony, you want to take over for just a minute? I will be back shortly. I'm going to turn the camera that way. Oh. Well, I guess I can take these headphones and change the mic.
All right, let me fix this here. On the speaker for the time being. Okay, see if there's anything in here that maybe I can answer for y'all or comment on. Let's see. I'm pretty sure once Wolf gets back, we're gonna just wrap it up here pretty soon. There's not really much left to there's not much left on the table. Anthony in the house. Yep, but just for a short time. Just for a little bit. I don't like showing myself being on camera and all that. I'm more of a behind the scenes type of guy. It says Rob379, close this live chat. Nothing good will come from this extension. Well, you can think that if you want. It doesn't really make a difference. Any word on Travel Channel releasing new shows on cryptids? Says some guy with a name I can't pronounce. No, they don't. They haven't told him anything. I've tried to look it up. There's no information on that. They release it when they release it, and they do what they do. So they don't tell you anything after they're done with your interview. All right, here we go.
What are you talking about?
They were asking about whether or not they Travel Channel put out any word as to when the things are going to come back out.
I heard this coming summer, but I'm not 100% about that. So, folks, those who are still here, what do you guys think of the interview with the Cryptid Studies Institute? They seem to be very genuine people. They were real adamant that they didn't want to step on anybody's toes, whether it be Jody or Roger. Unfortunately, Jody and Roger are not friends. So you got to tread lightly when it comes to that situation. Somebody's asking, are you going to free Mushu soon? When work slows down, all I can say is we are just balls to the wall, working. I mean, it is just, it's crazy. But in order to get the piece of property that we need, we have to put in the work. Nobody's going to hand us anything or give it to us for free. People too, you know, it's like nowadays, like people that could help you, they have the means to help you, they won't. And those that would help you don't have the means to do it. So these are pretty good. These are chocolate covered almonds that are flavored with monk fruit. No sugar. But they taste mildly sweet. Double A, what's this Friday's episode about? I don't even know yet. We're going to talk about that tomorrow when me and Anthony aren't exhausted. It's either going to be about the Brazilian exorcist, which is a very terrifying story, and I got to psych myself up for that. Or it's going to be about the things that I encountered in the building downtown, and I got to psych myself up for that too. I was down there Sunday, and my wife wanted some chicken tenders, and so we pulled into this place, and you could see the building from the drive-through. And she's like, "Oh, honey, I'm sorry you have to look at that building." And I'm like, well, I wasn't looking at it until you just pointed it out, and now, yeah, I'm looking at it now. Doesn't bother me. It's a messed up place. And I think it was more bothersome to people like me who are predisposed to stuff like that. But as my friend Tony pointed out, you know, when he was on the show during the Hellhounds episode, we talked a little bit about it, which was kind of a prelude to the show. And I wanted to get him on and talk before I go on and start talking about it, so it's not like I'm just up there making up something. I wanted somebody who had actually experienced some stuff in that building to talk about it. And there's some pretty freaky stuff that went on there. Diane Rain, I think you're an excellent surfer, dude. Well, I appreciate that. One of my favorite Marvel characters was always the Silver Surfer. So, do I keep up with Marvel movies? I like DC and Marvel to an extent. Yes. M. Dane, yes, you're correct. The original interview is on the Cryptid Institute's YouTube. Have I ever researched time slips? Absolutely. Actually, my back has been hurting me so bad, and my wife surprised me and set up a massage, and I just hadn't been keeping up with it, hadn't been doing it, and so she had to go to the DMV today. So she didn't want me to be bored, and so she set me up a massage, and so I went and got one. And the massage therapist, because I hadn't been going lately, the massage therapist was talking about time slips and deja vu, and how one time he was listening to his iPod, and he predicted like several songs in a row while it was on shuffle. And it was like he had done it before. Weird stuff. Then we started talking about the Mandela effect. And Wendy, the land purchase is going. We still have to, we're working on getting part of the loan. We're paying like a third of it. But it's hard. Wish we could just buy it outright, but whatever. Maybe we want to hit the lottery. Hit the lottery and I'll throw a big party and everybody from PRT we can fly them out and have a humongous concert. Social distancing. Everybody has to be 6 foot apart, so we have to get a huge venue. Digital Soldier, I love falling asleep to PRT. I binge listened to every episode of PRT over the past month. Some of the stuff that I'll be talking about on Friday's show will probably be pretty emotionally charged either way. I'm going to have to, Where did I get my shirt? It's called, it says here, let me see. It says Straight Outta Grayskull. And that's He-Man. My wife got it for me. She'd have to ask her. Martin Hertel, have you ever heard of a cryptid from southern Idaho called the Grinders? Sounds familiar. What is that? I may have heard somebody call it that. I don't know. That sounds familiar. But I guess that's it, folks. Be sure and like and subscribe on YouTube. Our subscription numbers have just come to a halt almost. I mean, we're at 13.6. We were at 13.5 for a long time. And now we're at 13.6. A lot of people are listening to us on Spotify, and it's not really helping to grow us because I'm not getting anything. It's from that. It's not really, we're not able to grow financially and then begin to put out like what I would like to do, like put out a lot more shows and do a lot more episodes and make it more of a full-time thing. And so, but a lot of people are listening to us on Spotify and the other different platforms, and the YouTube is not really growing. But the only way to listen to the live stream or to hear the live stream is to be on YouTube. So if you would please like and subscribe, and of course if you donate, that's a big help too. The Patreon, and then we have the super chat. You can donate money on the super chat, and I'll read your comment. It's one way to make sure that your comment is heard and read. So anything that anybody can do to help promote the show and grow the show. We sell merchandise too, PRT merchandise from prtpodcast.com. That's prtpodcast.com. My email address is joshturner@prtpodcast.com. We do have an art contest with different tiers of prizes right now we're doing too. Mothman is the current one. We still do our book giveaway every week. We give away an autographed book and a little bit of PRT swag. This past week's winner was Raven Roulette. That's the name she goes by on Facebook. I don't think that's her God-given Christian name, but Raven Roulette is what she goes by. And she was this past week's winner, so she'll be receiving an autographed book that I'll be taking with me. And if Raven, if you are listening, or what author would you like? Just throwing out there. Oh. An NJS 74. Thank you for that donation. Thank you very much. It's appreciated. Ryan, you dropped the ball. Nelly, I just read your text. Shame on you, Ryan. You gotta be kicking trolls out, brother.
I'll take care of it.
Okay.
He was saying something earlier about some kind of like, oh, you should take the chat down, something, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay. You can think that if you want. It doesn't really matter what we do. It doesn't have any effect on what we do or
Why
how
is
we
he
do
wanting
it.
to take the chat down?
I don't know. I don't try to figure out why people think what they think. Think like me or you're wrong. It's that simple.
I wanted to read you guys something really quickly here. J.R. Noel, who's a member of Paranormal Round Table group, he's been a group member for a long time. He posted this. He actually, Dogman, an undiscovered species. Okay, this is a group, 306 members. It says your membership is pending approval. Answer these questions from the group admins to help them review your request to join. Only the admins and moderators will see your answers. Do you understand from our rules and group description that this group's only purpose is to study Dogman as an animal and not to engage in discussion or theories that pertain to the supernatural? Sounds like some very large and famous Dogman shows. Anyways, it says that pertain to supernatural. You can choose one option. Yes, no. It says 1. I agree to the group rules. 1. Decisions by the admin team are final. Members who break our rules are instantly blocked. No correspondence will be entered into. And then, of course, no personal insults, blah, blah, blah. So they basically have created a group. Real quickly, Diane, thank you. Rain, thank you. Love and prayers for all of you. Appreciate that comment. And thank you for the $10 donation. JR, thank you for bringing that to my attention. And I appreciate you posting it in the Paranormal Roundtable group. How close-minded can you be? How ridiculous and stupid are you? Not JR, not you, the guy that put JR is a great guy, but like you're gonna sit there and close yourself off to an entire arena of possibilities because you personally don't subscribe to that. You want to believe that this is an animal that happens to walk around and move and has the upper body of a man. I am just blown away by the absolute ignorance and stupidity. And if you are the people behind that group and whatever, then yes, yeah, I'm talking to you. That's ridiculous. It's very closed-minded and narrow-minded and pretty much bullyish too. So anybody who doesn't subscribe to the way you believe, then you bully them and drive them away. That's great. That's awesome. That's where we've come to. People can't have an opinion now. That's ridiculous. Well, enjoy your small group. Hopefully it does not, good luck to you personally and may your group fail. I'll be nice. Ridiculous. Anyways, folks, that's all the time we had for today. I'm going to be back on Friday. We'll figure out what we're going to do. Either way, it's going to be a good show, and we're going to talk about all this weirdness that's going to happen we're going to get to the bottom of it one way or the other. And what I mean by that is all of it, all of the weirdness. I can't stop eating these almonds. They're so good. They're really good. Last ones. Okay. One last question. Delos says, I would like to hear what you know why Dogman is spiritual. Because of the hundreds of stories of them doing things that aren't what natural animals do. And don't say eating, because there have been cases of demonic entities and spirits consuming food. I mean, literally. I've gotten reports of all kinds of weird stuff happening when it comes to the spiritual realm. These entities can manifest themselves as physical. It doesn't mean they are. But like I had talked to Johnny from the Cryptid Institute, we had talked, I don't know if we talked about it earlier on the air, but we talked off air about it. I know that. And he believes, like I do, that there could be two different things. There could be spiritual and a spiritual aspect to it, but they could also be a physical creature, like I was saying about the inner earth and these devil monkey looking creatures. I'm not saying that they're all that way. If you talk to a Native American, they're going to tell you that they're skinwalkers. If you talk to someone that's, that lives in Europe and believes in the shape, they'll tell you they're werewolves. I've had people tell me that. A friend of mine in Germany believes very strongly that they're werewolves. Another buddy of mine in France believes that. One of my friends is Canadian. He believes that. Then others believe that there's a dogman species that runs around out there doing what it does, but then they also believe that there's a spiritual side of it. My opinion is that it could be all of the above. I don't believe that they're just an animal. I just don't. They don't do things that animals do. They're not like a bear or a wolf. If you're calling that an animal, that's not. They don't do those kind of things. They do much more on an ethereal level than people could possibly know. And I get tons of stories in that direction. So that's why I believe, once you get hundreds of stories about it, then you can start to formulate an opinion like, hey, this is what I kind of think this is, But anyways, that's all the time we had for tonight. We may or may not have Roger on next Wednesday. We'll see what happens. If he chooses to come on and talk to us, then great. If not, well, we move on. But it'd be nice to hear the story retold from him, and I can ask some questions. Yeah, Mandy. I remember the mom from Hernandez Ranch said the dog man she saw as a kid in Amarillo, which I guess you said Armadillo, but it's Amarillo, pointed to the sky when they asked where it's from. Yeah, exactly. But Satan, or Shaitan, is known as the prince of the power of the air. So, go figure. Okay, folks, that's all the time we have. I'm going to let you go. I love everybody. Peace and love, and as Wim Hof would say, all the love, all the power.